his success with Ineos, all of his success with British cycling as well. He's already back at work. He's already back on an exercise bike. He had this surgery about 3 weeks ago. It involved slicing through his abdomen. So incredible that he's already back at it.
Is it really? Because you see, you look at him, what does he know? It's all he knows. And what it is sometimes is it's a coping mechanism. You know, I'm just going to get on with it. Because you know what? Sitting at home, when have I ever sat at home and just put my feet up? I've never done it. For me to feel healthy and productive, I'm just going to... And then that's probably why. That's probably why he's just going to go back to work. And what he'll say in the office is, don't even talk about it. Just treat me as normal. You know?
But I think you're spot on. But the fascinating thing about that is he's given this interview to Matt Dickinson in the Times, where he's talked about it and said that actually, as you say, precisely that focus, precisely that drive, that total commitment to his work could be part of what got him to the point he was at, in the sense that there had been signs. He'd had a doctor say to him, listen Dave, you really do need to go and get this checked out, and he'd said, no, I'm young, he's only 55, I'm fit, I'm healthy, and to be honest, I am too busy, so I can't really deal with this now. I've got a Tour de France to orchestrate.
The one thing you miss out also is, I'm afraid. Because I'm telling you, that comes into it. I mean, I was fortunate enough to have the test a year ago, and one of my old clubs, Charlton Athletic, was running a day, and I'll be honest with you, I bottled out half a dozen times.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm 51. I bottled out half, but then I went and then got tested, and then you kind of wait for a while before they let you know. And that was horrible. Did you? That was horrible.
And it's fascinating because we know, and you know, and Sir Dave Brailsford, of course, knows that when you're having this test, it is a good thing to have, and it is a good thing to find out, even if it's going to be bad news. And yet, there is a part of you that even subconsciously just thinks, well, if I'm bumbling on for now, that's kind of okay.
It's a necessary evil, is what it is. You have to have it done, and it is necessary. But I tell you what, the ride is a bumpy one. It really is. I mean, you know, he's, as much as people will say he got bad news, no, he didn't. Because imagine if he'd put it off for another 6 months and another 8 months. So he didn't get bad news. He got the news he needed, and hopefully he'll get positive news tomorrow. If not, they'll just operate again, and hopefully at some point he'll get the news that he's all clear. But that's because it's done now. You know, imagine where he'd have been if he'd been allowed to ignore it.
And fascinating to read as well that he took that very methodical, analytic approach, he calls it, that he applies to his work, to cycling, to his diagnosis. He was there in the team Ineos bus, Googling the whole time, different kinds of surgery, different approaches. Incredible to be able to face it in that way, because for all of that fear to get the diagnosis, and he said he was so shaken driving home from the hospital, as you would be, that he had to pull over. And he was like, well, what's this? This isn't what I'm like. But actually, it is a huge thing for anyone to deal with. To then be able to settle down and approach it almost intellectually is amazing.
Well, if you think about it, it is, but it isn't, because it's what he knows. It's what he slips back into a mode that is comfortable for him. It's like the way he is at the moment. It's like a comfort blanket for him. That's what he knows. It's an arena he knows and he loves and he works in. The other arena he has no idea about. You know, the one where he sits and waits for other people and relies on other people. He's never done that. So he's somewhere where he's safe. Now, when he gets the bad news, you see, you know, he had a wobble by himself. No one else sees that. All they see is this titan, this strong man going about his business, because that's what they've always seen. That's what he's always known. But in his private moments, without a doubt, he's shed a tear. Without a doubt.
Well, he is certainly very, very impressive in his sphere of influence. We can hear from Sir Bradley Wiggins, who's been talking about the vast impact that Sir Dave Brailsford has had on cycling.
I mean, he was very reflective at the Tour, and you know, he's done so much for cycling. I know he's faced a lot of criticism over the recent years, but we were talking at dinner last night just how different cycling used to be, and obviously Brian will know only too well in the 90s and obviously the early 2000s, and you know, cycling has been elevated to such a level in the UK, and largely down to his vision and his his drive, really, and we see where it is now with Team Ineos and the money involved in the sport, and we had Teo on here yesterday as really a product of that system, as the likes of Owen Dahl and these guys, even the Yates brothers, although they're not with the Team Skies and Ineos of this world at the moment, but
they came through British cycling,
yeah, absolutely,
didn't they?
and obviously Dave, that was Dave's initial baby, was British cycling, and I think everyone wishes him well, really, and his family as well, of course. This is a father and a husband, and I think everyone wishes him well for the future.
Yeah, Brian, he has changed the face of cycling in the UK, hasn't he?
He certainly has. As Bradley alluded to, in my era, all the professionals, all the riders that tried to get to the top, pretty much done it on their own, off their own back, and they had to have family support. But Dave has changed all that. I can remember him working with a British team at the start of his cycling career in the milk race, and I only wish that I was born in a different era so that I could have maybe worked under Sir Dave Brailsford, because what he's done is absolutely phenomenal.
Well, we all wish Sir Dave Brailsford the very best in his recovery, man, that we all know very well indeed.
So Bradley Wiggins and Brian Smith, they're talking on Eurosport. That's two former Olympic cyclists reacting to the news of Sir Dave Brailsford's diagnosis and recovery. And if you're listening to this and you're not quite aware of how widespread a problem prostate cancer is, the stats are striking, to say the very least. Most common cancer in men, more than 47,500 men are diagnosed with it every year. That's 129 men every day in the UK. Every 45 minutes, one man dies from prostate cancer. That's more than 11,500 men every year, and 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with it in their lifetime. So this is a seriously widespread thing, and I think what is being shown by the Dave Brailsford case is how important it is to get these things tested, particularly for prostate cancer, but for all kinds of cancer and diseases in general.
It's important to do it. I mean, there is a fear. Of course, there is a huge fear of actually being out, wanting to deal with it. I mean, from a personal point of view, I remember listening to the radio where they said, if you have a cough for a long while, you know what, it could be cancer. That's what they said on the radio. So I had a cough for about 3 months. I was petrified. I didn't want to do anything, and it was a horrible cough. I didn't want to do anything.
Did you do anything?
No, I didn't. I'll be honest with you. I took some medication and it went. But in the middle of that cough, I was terrified. So I can just imagine how easy it is to ignore it. It is so easy. But if this highlights anything, it's the importance of regular checks, because I think it was a quarterly blood test that he had, and that's something that through his work he regularly has. Now imagine, like I say, if he was Dave Brailsford, the painter and decorator, doesn't have quarterly tests, so would never catch it. So it's important that people listen to this and get tested as regular as they should do. Get tested. It doesn't take long. It's very straightforward, and it could save your life. It really could.
And in the case of Sir Dave Brailsford, there were signs there that once you know he's been diagnosed with prostate cancer, you think, well, yeah, of course, that's a sign of prostate cancer. But actually, if you're someone working in a very high-pressure job, or any job at all, to be honest, and you're knackered, you think, well, actually, that could just happen.
Stress.
He fell asleep at his desk and woke up at his desk. Well, okay, are you extremely ill, or are you in one of the most high-pressure jobs in sport? It's easy to see when you then couple that with the kind of timetable that has, where you haven't, or you feel like you haven't got time for it. You're moving at, he put it, at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
You fatigue. There's going to be periods. He'll have had this kind of period before, sort of where he's felt lethargic or he's felt tired, and he'd have just brushed it off, which is probably why he just brush it off and get on with it. And like I said, his lifestyle is, you could almost see it as somewhat selfish, because it is so focused, so driven, that anything else, any distractions, I've taught myself to ignore those distractions, and fatigue and illness is one of them. I've got a bit of a cold, never mind, carry on, because these are the things I've got to do. I've got so many things to do, I've got to achieve them. I'll deal with it after that.
Well, do you think that this kind of thing is a particular problem for sportsmen or people who work in sport with that elite mentality? Because there is that feeling, A, of being very busy, of being obsessive, which is the word that Sir Brailsford uses, but also of feeling kind of invincible, of being so young, so fit.
Yeah, it shouldn't happen to me.
Why would you get ill?
Well, it shouldn't happen to me. I'm fit. I'm young. I work in an environment where I'm also seen as a a lion. I'm seen as a top man. I'm seen physically as strong. And to get this, hold on a sec. No, that shouldn't happen to me. This doesn't happen to someone who's dedicated their life to fitness and well-being like I have. And it's interesting because a lot of the things that he needs to do now, he'll have said to his riders when they're injured and stuff like that. So it's interesting to see if he's actually going to listen to his own advice. And he probably won't.
Well, I think he might. He says in this Times article, listen, I'm normally talking to athletes about the mindset of approaching a problem. You think, well, okay, there's a climb on a certain Alp, or there's actually this, which is rather bigger, certainly much more important. I think it was clear to me reading the interview that he's a completely extraordinary man. Yeah. And I say that completely distinct from all of his achievement. You know, the MBE, the CBE, then the knighthood, all of the Olympic medals, all of the Tour de France wins. As a person, he is clearly fairly extraordinary. The way he approaches it. Yeah. And I think, obviously, that I'm not a doctor, but approaching it with a kind of go for it attitude will surely help him.
Well, of course it will. If you look at him, this is a guy who single-handedly changed the face of cycling. He did. And it's not just cycling. His mentality has touched so many sports. When you talk about the marginal gains, how many other sports, I would be surprised how many people have lent on him for advice in their own sports. You're hoping, and I think that's probably what's going to happen, like I said, is his mindset will help him because he won't slack off. You know, sometimes with people
back on the exercise. Exactly. Any excuse to get off an exercise bike, Morts. I'm not back on it for at least a year.
Exactly. Well, see, for me, I know I would be because I know that's the way I've worked. When I've been injured, I kind of know how to get myself fit. I'm 51. I might hate it, but I know, and he knows it. He knows it. He understands it. It's part of his DNA. It's what he does. So he will get back fitter than the average man. Let's be honest. Like you said, he's not an average man. It is not in an average world for him. He's not, and that will be a blessing and a curse.
Well, all of the very best of luck to him. We're going to be talking about Sir Dave Brailsford and, of course, the issue of prostate cancer throughout the show. We're also going to be looking at the lesser concerns but interesting angles of the success of Team Ineos, the marketability of that team in light of any potential scenario here, and updates from the Ashes as well. We've had a wicket. Matthew Wade was given out LBW to Sam Curran. He reviewed it, but the umpire's call was on the wicket, so it stays with the on-field decision of out. Wade goes for 19, Australia 119 for 4.
Love sport. If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Are you paying way too much for your energy bills? A spokesman said could help you save big money. With electricity costs continuing to rise, you could save hundreds of pounds by shopping around. Just go to aspokesmansaid.com and look for the very best value energy deals on the market. Don't waste your hard-earned cash. You could be on a much cheaper deal. Go to aspokesmansaid.com.
Fighting for you, saving you money. If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
I know my IQ is fantastic. I took a test and the results came back negative.
This is Love Sport.
Chris Hughton has been talking about the issue of BAME coaches in British football. Of course, we've seen the likes of Chris Powell and lots of other guys brought into Gareth Southgate's England squad, already doing fantastic work there, particularly with some of the younger lads. But Hughton is saying that English football has missed out on a generation of BAME coaches.
You know, the perception of black individuals in football was good centre forwards, good wingers, fast, strong, but not really captain or management material. The disappointing fact is that we haven't made that progress. We lost a generation of really influential black players that we feel, you know, could have made very good managers. I've spoken to numerous black and ethnic players over the years that wanted to manage, that have wanted to get into the game, that have looked for that pathway, and they couldn't see those role models that could in effect show them a pathway.
Chris Hughton there talking about BAME coaches in the English game. Paul, I want to start, before we get into the issue of the coaching, with that remark about black players back in his day being viewed as successful attacking players and perhaps privileged for their physical attributes or stereotypes around them, rather than being viewed as leaders or intelligent players. Is that something that you experience?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a societal thing more than anything else. If you look at, you know, you only have to look on TV and films and stuff over the years how black people have been viewed. It's been around physical attributes. Not so long ago, I think one black player was, you know, big and black and strong and never been seen as intelligent, articulate, or even smart, or leaders, or dynamic, or anything like that. Yeah, of course that happened. I mean, you know, I know for a fact, you know, I bucked the trend because I was, you know, I remember people used to say to me, yeah, well, you're a black guy, you must be quick. I went, no, I'm the one black guy who isn't quick. Just so as you know. No, I'm not quick. No. But that's, and you had to just get on with that. You know, you didn't have the wherewithal to challenge it because, you know, you just wanted to get on and be the best player you could be. Now, for me, my football wasn't about physical attributes. It was about intelligence. It was about manipulation of the ball. It was about finding space. It was about technical and passing. It wasn't necessarily, I couldn't run like the wind. I could leap fairly well, but I couldn't run like the wind, and I'm pleased that I couldn't.
Yeah, and what it was interesting. So do you think that players like you who didn't conform to those stereotypical ideals of what a black athlete is were actually helpful in moving us forward, in the sense that you look at Paul Mortimer and you think, well, there is intelligence there, there's creation there, there's superb goal celebrations there.
Yeah, fantastic. Oh, I knew you were going to bring that. No, because what happened to me was, well, he can't run and he can't do this, because what people then started to look at is what I couldn't do. And instead of looking at what I actually could do, they'd look at, you know, the player that could run 50 yards with the ball at pace and maybe get a corner for us. I remember having a row with someone. They ran, you know, one of our players ran 50 yards with the ball. It was you know, people said it was a great run. I'm saying no, it wasn't. 5 chances he had to play someone clean through. Didn't see it. Yeah, but it was a great. No, I see the game differently.
Yeah, great run down an alley.
Exactly right. So you know, it's about, you know, being able to see, because what I'm told is I'm different. That's what people are saying. You are different. You are put in this category. That is what you are, and that is what you do. You are strong and big and quick, and that's what you are. And you are submissive. You do what you are told. There isn't any intelligence. You're not supposed to think. You're supposed to do. That unfortunately was where we were.
So to what extent, you've used the past tense there, to what extent do you think we've moved away from that kind of conception?
Well, you know, what we're seeing now in terms of, and it always starts on TV, pundits. You know, there's a lot of black and ethnic minority pundits who are intelligent, articulate, know their stuff. Rio Ferdinand, people like that, know their stuff. A lot of prominent players are intelligent and articulate. Look at someone like Thierry Henry on the pitch. It wasn't about being big, black and quick. He was fantastic to watch. He was almost an artist to watch.
No, he was an artist.
You know, you look at Ronaldo. You know, you look at people like that, they're just artists to watch. And you know what Ronaldo I'm talking about. Not this one.
The proper one.
Yeah, the proper one. You know, they're artists to watch. So it wasn't about them being quick. It was about what they brought to the game and the artistry that they brought to the game. And yes, it's changing. It's slow. I mean, if you look at managers, for example, and again, that's a historical thing. If you take owners, people that own clubs and make the decisions, the majority of them are more across. If they're not foreign, middle-aged and white guys, that's what they are. So they're looking at managers, okay, people that lead, okay. In their life, how many people that look like me as a black guy would they have seen owning something? Maybe a corner shop, maybe something like that, but that would still be beneath them. How many would they see? So they wouldn't see. So it wouldn't be a natural thing to see someone like me as someone who they could trust with their money.
Well, this for me is completely mad because I am very ignorant about this, having been brought up as a posh white bloke.
Yeah.
Well, frankly, at a school where there were a few black guys.
Yeah.
There weren't many. My girlfriend's black, and we went on holiday to Devon this week, which is
good luck with that.
But, well, this is the thing, and it's my favourite place on earth.
Yeah.
I've been going since I was 2 weeks old, and she's been with me before.
Oh,
and
dear.
Honestly, mate, it never crossed my mind that she might not feel comfortable going there. So she talked to me before we went and said, "Listen, is it going to be all right?" And I thought, "Oh God, I'm such a moron." I should have thought, and I went, "Yeah, no, it'll be fine." And we went, and we had a lovely time, and it was a really, really good week. But there was one point where we went, I think it was on Wednesday, we went into a sweet shop. It's kind of an old, posh, old-fashioned sweet shop, right? It's my favourite sweet shop. I've been going there since I was 4, and I have nothing but positive connotations with this place. But it's fair to say that most of the clientele probably look and sound like me.
Yeah.
So we go in there together, and I do what I completely normally do, and I go and get my pick and mix, and I'm having the time of my life, and she is waiting to get some fudge, right? As you do. And this, don't mean it in a rude way, posh white girl walks over to her, and she is dressed completely normally.
Yeah.
And just starts asking her if they're free samples. Just completely assumes she works there.
Right.
And I hear this out the corner of my eye, and I think, I haven't just heard that. And I turn around and see what's going on. And I was so angry. And I looked at my girlfriend. She could see me getting angry. And she just kind of looked at me and went, leave it. And I talked to her afterwards, and I said, what on earth was that? And I was outraged. And she said, I get that all the time.
It's the norm. I mean, the thing about it is, and it's important. My wife's white, and she gets angrier than me. Because as far as I'm concerned, I would say to her, shout, and she knows because she's seen it. That's the norm for me. I like to get on with that. That happens. That doesn't just happen in Devon. that happens absolutely everywhere. And actually, as you started with the story, I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it. And what I would say to people is, from the minute I wake up, and your partner will tell you, the minute she wakes up to the minute she goes to sleep, there will be examples that will inform her that she's different. Just in the way people behave to her, just in the way people treat her, just service she'll get, just things like that just remind you. And it's constant. It is constant. So if you bring it back to a black manager or a coach, this is something you have to deal with all the time. These casual aspects of racist behaviour. Now, you go into a job where, unfortunately, it rears its head again. It's got nothing to do with your ability, okay? But there is a difference. No one wants to express it. No one wants to be honest about it, okay? So they try and find other things that aren't there, that just are not there. And I think it's an issue that we have to admit exists, because I think a lot of people still don't think it exists. You know, 3 to 5% managers are black. Or non-white, let's say, and 25-30% of players are of black and ethnic minority backgrounds that grace the game. It's a problem, but we are not going to do anything about it while leadership and decision making lacks diversity. Until there's more diversity, then we can go into the sweet shop in Devon and we'll be all right.
So on that, with Chris Hughton's comments, he's saying that we've all missed out on a generation of BAME coaches.
Of course we have.
I think that's absolutely spot on. But what he's saying about, I've completely lost my train of thought, when he's talking about a lack of role models. Is it about that? Is it about young black players looking up and not seeing black managers, which of course they haven't had the opportunity to, or is it more about that issue of owners or a lack of representation on boards as well?
It's a bit of both, because if we have more black players opening their mouths, then it will challenge. I mean, I in my role when I worked at Kick It Out, I spoke to a lot of players, and at the end of a meeting there'd be loads of my mates, ex-black players and stuff. You're gonna go and coach? No, not having it. And I had a row with one, and he said to me, "You coached me. I know how good a coach you were. Look what happened to you. I'm never going to be as good as you. If you can't do it, how can I?" And I went to him, no. You have to make your own experiences. You're not me. Times have changed. You have to go and challenge. It's important that you. He went, no, because I know I'm not going to be treated fairly.
So this is a man who would like a career in coaching or management and didn't try because he was so sure of the prejudice.
So sure. I know good, mates of mine who gave up in the end. Actually gave up trying because they'd had the door shut on them so many times. Now, the thing about it is, in my travels, I spoke to a lot of managers, delivered education managers. I had a couple of their coaches, and I knew they had the ump with me, and they were saying, look, Paul, I need to talk to you about this black coach thing. And first of all, I'm putting them straight on that. Then they say to me, it's unfair because, when I got sacked from my last job, I was out of work for 6 months. I went, let me stop you there. I said, black and ethnic minority managers and coaches are out of work for 3 years, not 6 months. And he went, yeah, but I applied for 12 jobs. I went, okay, how many replies did you get? He went, 12. I went, fine. I said, black and ethnic minority managers and coaches get about 3. Okay. How many interviews did you get? 6. Right. Okay. Black and ethnic minority managers and coaches get about 1. Okay. I said, so can you see the privilege you have? You don't even understand or see the privilege you have because it's the norm to you. For someone like me, the norm is I'll apply 12 times. I won't get anything from 9 or 10 of them.
Well, I think Sol Campbell is a very interesting example here because he said he applied for 13 jobs before he got his chance at Macclesfield. And he was getting the odd interview, but as you say, not very many. And I think you would have to say, looking back on the job he did at Macclesfield, that there is a man who is a very, very good football manager with a very, very good football brain, very clever guy. And you would have to ask, why, if not for his race, was he getting those opportunities? And I found it very interesting on your point of people admitting that this is a problem. I've had this conversation with white journalists and with white former footballers sometimes on air, and they're not people who you would think of as in any way racist in a conventional sense, but they really don't think that Sol Campbell would have found it easier to get a job if he were white, and I just can't see how he wouldn't.
Well, I mean, look, to be truthful honest, with those people, it's important to hear them talk. It's important because you need to now ask them why. Why do you think Sol Campbell started at Macclesfield when Frank Lampard started where he did, when Steven Gerrard started when he did, when Gareth Southgate started? I think Gareth Southgate got special dispensation because he didn't have any qualifications when he started, where Roy Keane started where he did. Okay? You look at Paul Ince, he started at Macclesfield at the time, and he was a legendary footballer. Come on. Why is that the case? And let's have that conversation. It's put racism to one side. Just ask yourselves. Let's be honest and ask ourselves about that. And then once we acknowledge it's an issue, we can then start to do something about it.
So in terms of doing something about it then, what is the next step? It's a gradual process, it's a long process, but how can we start to get that?
The first thing to do is it's very, very strange you say this. I'm involved with some researchers from Greenwich University, and what we did was we delivered some research on the Rooney Rule, and we spoke to some clubs, and it wasn't just about the first team, it was about transparency. It was about transparency from application to appointment. We're looking at not just managers, coaches, academy players, coaches and stuff like that. It was all around some research to highlight what the issues were now, and also have some recommendations. It was launched yesterday at Charlton actually, and I was there. It was very, very interesting. It's taken a couple of years, because getting into the clubs was so difficult because their fear of exposure. We're saying we want to help you, by actually helping you to understand the broader issue. And it's gone to all of the stakeholders. We'll see, because that's what has to happen. First of all, put some research together and work out what's going on. Then you acknowledge it's true. Then we can do something about it.
It's going to be a long process. An update in the Ashes: Australia 137-4. Turns out this Steve Smith is quite good with a cricket bat in his hand. It's another 50. Brings it up with a 6 down the ground off Jack Leach. Lots more to come on Love Sport Drive. Very shortly, we're going to be joined in the studio by former England fly half Andy Goode.
Love Sport. Please state your reason for this call.
I would like to end my home insurance policy.
Please state your reason for this call.
End my policy.
Please enter your 12-digit passcode.
Policy ended.
Ugh, finally.
To confirm end of policy, please enter credit card details and pay £50.
With Aviva Plus home insurance, you can pay monthly at no extra cost and with no cancellation charges. New Aviva Plus. Insurance the way it should be.
Excludes Northern Ireland.
Are you paying way over the odds for your car insurance? The spiralling costs put people off driving, full stop. But you're a careful driver, and realistically, you'll only need an insurance payout if some halfwit cuts you off on the M1. So you shouldn't be forced to pay massive car insurance premiums. And you don't have to. Go to price comparison site spokesmansaid.com today and find out the best value car insurance deals on the market. Don't pay the price for not shopping around.
spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
This is Love Sport.
It's Posh Boys on Drive. Johnny Burrow and Paul Mortimer with you until 7. Very fortunate to be joined in the studio by Andy Good, former England fly half, who's here on behalf of Green King IPA. Andy, lovely to have you with us. Thanks for coming in. Green King have provided us with some stats. They've been polling sports fans ahead of this Rugby World Cup. We're hearing 56% of people more looking forward to the Rugby World Cup than the Ashes. As a former rugby man, that probably doesn't surprise you.
It doesn't, no. Green King are a brilliant company that are obviously heavily involved in rugby and cricket, but listen, the highlight for every rugby player, every rugby fan is every 4 years the spectacle of the World Cup. It's unbelievable, and you know, they've done their research. We talk about debating who's going to win, who's not going to win, and you know, New Zealand have been massive favourites over the last 2 World Cups, and shock horror, they've won both of them. This time they are favourites, but by no means massively ahead of other sides, and there's 4 or 5 or 6 teams that could potentially win it, which makes it so exciting. So I'm not surprised. We're all looking forward to it.
I'm looking at the squad, and you know, in all squads, even when we England football, is this a balanced enough squad? Is it a squad good enough to sustain a proper standard, a quality standard that will end up with us winning it?
Yeah, definitely. We've got the potential to win it. The thing is, with every squad that is announced in any format of any game, people like us sit there and people sit in the pubs, in Green King pubs, and debate who should be in, who should be out, and pick it apart. So of course there's 2 scrum halves. People are saying it's a specialised position, you should have taken 3. There's 2 tight head props, a specialised position, you should have taken 3. But you have to get the balance right. He's overloaded wingers and fullbacks in there because Jack Noel's been injured. So the proof will be in the pudding when we get into the World Cup. If we start to pick up injuries, do you then fly people over and replace people straight away? There's a certain Danny Cipriani that's not made the squad, so that's a big talking point that I think everyone's fed up of talking about now, to be fair. But we've definitely got the ability to do it. You name our starting team, our power team, the likes of Billy Vunipola, Manu Tuolangi's fit, that's massive for us. Itoji and all the Saracens.
God, I was going to say, but for how long?
Yeah,
but I'm not going to. I've said it. Sorry.
Yeah, don't say it. You know, when we get those guys on the field, which they're fit and firing at the minute, we've got every chance of beating any team in the world. And the World Cup is a long 8-week tournament. We're going to pick up injuries. We might pick up a couple of bans here or there. You don't know. The way they're refereeing the tackle law now, things are going to happen, and I just hope that Owen Farrell drops his tackle height a little bit.
Let's hope,
because he's our key man.
Interesting that you talk about a power team there, because obviously these guys are very skillful with the ball in hand, but a big weapon for Jones is the size of some of these guys, the likes of Cocker and Singer. How much is that pace and strength going to be a big part of the game plan?
It's huge. You only have to look at the South African boys. There was a picture on social media last week with them all with their tops off. And they are huge. They're ripped to the bone. There's not an ounce of fat on them, and it's now international rugby is the battle of the game line. So you need big, powerful runners. This is why, personally, I think Ireland have fallen off a little bit over the last sort of year or so. They were right at the forefront of it. They beat the All Blacks. They were #1 team in the world. But now it's all about power. It's all about getting your big ball carriers over that gain line, the likes of Carl Sinclair. He's been phenomenal over the last few games for England. Then you've got a big forward pack. You've got Mara Itoje, you've got Billy Vunipola, maybe Sam Underhill, Mark Wilson. These are big bruising boys, and you ain't winning a World Cup with small players, let me tell you.
Can I ask, over the 8-week period, it takes a long time to recover from these games. So turnaround time, injuries, do we have enough? I mean, if we're going for this big, powerful thing, are we going to be able to have our strongest side on the pitch every time?
Well, I don't think any rugby player's ever played a game where he's 100% fit.
Same with football.
Because you get banged up all the time, you get banged up in training. But the hard thing for England is, and some people are looking at it as a positive, some people are thinking it's pretty tough. Our first 2 games are against Tonga and the USA, the 2 perceived easier games in the group. And then we've got to beat Argentina and France to win the group to qualify. So the big games against Tier 1 nations, we go Argentina, the third round of our pool fixtures, then France, the last game, and then you're into a quarter-final, semi-final, final. So you've got 5 big games week on week on week against Tier 1 opposition. So it's all about how you manage your squad. First 2 games, he could pick any 15 and we should win them both, and that's not being arrogant. That's where we're at as an England rugby team.
But you think you'll start with the strongest, though?
The first 2 weeks are a balance. You've got to get to week 3 against Argentina, which is our first real test, and have a side there that you think is something near your first choice team. And you're going to get injuries, of course you are. You're going to get, you might get players suspended. You watch the Tongans come at us in round 1. I mean, you talk about big boys, they are huge.
Andy, looking at more of Green King IPA's polling stats, when you talk about these constant big games for England and also the quality in that side, 43% are backing us to make the semi-finals, 14% backing us to win the whole thing. As fans, is it fair enough if we're disappointed if we don't even get a semi?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, semi-finals is the sort of minimal requirement, I think. We're a power nation. We're one of the biggest playing nations in the world in terms of numbers. We should be up there. We've had a disappointing World Cup in 2015, the first home nation to never get out of the group. We've been through this regeneration under Eddie Jones. We won the Grand Slam. We won the Six Nations. We're now here looking at this World Cup, and I think Eddie Jones has always said, judge me on the World Cup. Give me a 4-year cycle. And lo and behold, we're here. Semi-final, minimum requirement. We might meet New Zealand in the semi-final. And if you lose to New Zealand in the semi-final of a World Cup and you put in a good performance, then...
Can't ask for any more than that. Yeah.
I mean, you've done all right. Obviously, as an England fan, you want us to win it. And they are beatable. But there'd be no shame in losing to New Zealand in a semi. There'd be a lot of shame in losing a quarter-final to Wales, though, because I'm English.
Oh, God. Are we good to go? Because I watched the game against, I think it was Italy, which didn't seem enough of a test for me. Yeah. So it's about, like under or overcooked or whatever, but getting to that first game, will the players have played enough, enough top quality testing games to be ready?
Yeah, I think they have. It's really difficult. You can't replicate the intensity of a World Cup in warm-up games. Now, you're looking at these, we play 4 warm-up games. We've beaten Wales's supposed first team at Twickenham with our second team. Second game we went to Wales with our second team and just lost to their best team again because they were scratching for a victory. Third game we...
You really don't like Wales, do you, Andy?
I don't know what you're talking about.
let that go, my friend.
And the third game of the summer series, we have our biggest ever victory over Ireland. Record-breaking victory over Ireland. And the last game was against Italy. The squad, the first couple of games, people are playing for the places in the squad. Then Eddie Jones names a squad. You're then thinking as a player, do I really want to go full bore into this game and potentially get injured, and then my World Cup dream's done, even though I've already been picked for the squad? So it is a balance. You can make an argument for Ireland. They took 50 against us at Twickenham a few weeks back, and people will say, well, they're nowhere near ready. England are ready now. So you can peak too soon.
Yeah.
People saying Ireland peaked a year too soon when they beat the All Blacks last November. And so you can argue anything, but Eddie Jones, he's a wise man. He also understands the culture of Japan, being half Japanese, having lived there for a long time, and going to a place that's alien to every rugby player to play international rugby. No one's ever been on a 8-week tour to Japan, let me tell you. You've got to fit in with the culture. You've got to understand what you can do, what you can't do. And I heard something earlier, it was ridiculous. They said you can't cross a road in Japan even if there's no traffic there, unless it's the green light to cross. So you think about doing that in London?
Well, that'll work for the American team. In some parts of California, I think, it's a criminal offence if you step into the road without a green light. The one thing on the cultural point of view, which is going to be a very interesting one for some players of all nations, is the Japanese attitude to tattoos.
Yep.
Where in Japan, because they're closely linked to the Yakuza and gangs, the players are going to have to cover them up on the pitch, which I think is very, very interesting. Presumably, if you can get your thermal in the mix just to do it for you, that'll be great. I do have to ask about Johnny Wilkinson, who a huge amount of listeners will, of course, remember that iconic moment in a World Cup final. You played with him, you played against him. 30% of the people polled by Green King IPA reckon he is the best kicker of all time. Are they right?
I think I was, to be honest, but no, of course. Listen, we've won a World Cup. Johnny dropped the goal to win the World Cup in 2003. As we stand now, I think it should be more than that. It should be more than 35%. He's a legend of English rugby. He's the one guy that, let's not forget, we're the only country in the Northern Hemisphere to win a World Cup. It's always been shared around the Southern Hemisphere, and apart from 2003 when England won it. So, Johnny, you stick him on that pedestal and he stays there. What we hope now as England fans is Owen Farrell has got a similar mindset to Johnny Wilkinson in terms of his intelligence, in terms of his intensity around training, around playing as a leader. I'd like the fans to be able to say, actually, 2019 it's Owen Farrell, because that means he's kicked the winner.
That would be good. Now, Green King, who polled these fans, I don't know what sports fans they polled. I got the ump with that. Because when they say only 10% feel Danny Cipriani would have made an impact in Eddie Jones' squad, he wasn't he the player of the year?
He was.
Is he not a talent?
He's a fantastic
Why is
talent.
he not in the squad?
Various different reasons, I think, and some can be aired, some can't. So, no, I think with Danny, Eddie's got his way of doing things. Now, Eddie's always said it doesn't matter what we all think in the press or the fans think. It's what Eddie thinks, and it's how you mesh an environment together with different personalities. Danny Cipriani for Gloucester last year tore up trees for them. He was Premiership Player of the Year. Everyone was crying for him to be in the England squad, and he should have been. But Eddie wasn't having any of it. Eddie's way is Eddie's way. Danny Cipriani's been given one opportunity under Eddie Jones to start a game for England against South Africa on a tour last summer. We'd lost the first two tests. He comes in the third test, runs the game, we win it. I think he even gets man of the match, and yet he's not been seen since. So, there's no rhyme or reason to Eddie Jones, as I've said before. I think I'd have 100% taken Danny Cipriani. I'd have had him on the bench. I'd start Owen Farrell at 10 as our first choice. Danny Cipriani's a game changer, and they've not selected him. If George Ford or Owen Farrell gets injured, he's the first guy on the plane, I hope. But you never know with Eddie Jones. He might pick someone else just to annoy Danny.
Well, would there also potentially be an element of pride, where he's made a really big call leaving him out, just sort of doubling down on his own decision and going, you know what, even if there is an injury, I've made that call, you're not in the squad, in the team?
Well, the hard thing is I don't think there's anyone else. In terms of a guy that's putting his hand up to play international rugby at fly half in England, Danny Cipriani is the next man. There's no one else that's got anywhere near the jersey. Owen Farrell, George Ford are the only two guys that he's picked outside of Danny Cipriani. So he has to pick him if there's an injury. The interesting thing will be, does he jump straight away if someone gets injured? If it's a 2-week injury, will he try and cope without him? There'll be cries for Sips to get on the plane out to Japan as soon as Owen Farrell's got a bandage on his leg. So let's see what happens.
I actually think Eddie Jones would play himself before Danny Cipriani. I really do.
Come out of retirement.
You're going to get the call.
Paul Mortimer will be at Heathrow Airport with a flag going, now get Danny on the plane.
Get Paul Mortimer on the plane.
We'll have more with Andy in just a moment. An update for you in the cricket. It is Australia 147 for 4, trailing England by 151 runs.
From Ali to Zaha, we've got it covered. Love Sport Radio.
Hi, my name's Kurt Edwards. I work in advertising and live in Surrey. Last year, the family content insurance was £745. A friend of mine had recommended a spokesmansaid.com when it came for this year's renewal. I managed to get it for £403. So for those 10 minutes on that website, I saved over £340. Told my family, my friends, you'd be absolutely mad not to give it a go.
thespokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership.
All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app. Because there's only one you. How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you. And making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support. From how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search One You.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply for quick reply, affects your concentration, and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
I like Putin. He gets me. I like Trump. I've got him.
This is Love Sport.
Paul Mortimer is still very much on the wind-up, still very much with you, where we won't be until 7. Johnny Burrow and Paul Mortimer, of course, here for Posh Boys on Drive. Great to chat to Andy Good a minute ago, and we discovered that Paul is a huge fan of Danny Cipriani.
Yes,
We're joined by producer Kieran in the studio. We're going to talk a bit of cricket, but just first, let's talk Danny, because he said he'd have had to turn water into wine to get into Eddie Jones's squad. That was his phrase, basically saying, listen, he was so set against calling me up, anything short of messianic levels of miraculous behaviour, and I'm not getting on the plane. Is this anything to do with Danny Cipriani, the rugby player? Or is this, if we're being honest, about Danny Cipriani, who's had a bit of trouble?
I don't think it's got anything to do with the rugby player. Because as Andy said, he played one game, and I remember the tour. It wasn't the greatest of tours, and we were in a bit of trouble on it too. He came in and was magnificent. Could, in my opinion, do no more. Yet not been seen since. And in that time, Premiership Player of the Year. There's no more he could do. Yet he's still not involved.
It's like not putting Sterling in the squad.
Yeah, it is. And just bringing this back to cricket, it's kind of like the Kevin Peterson stuff. So there's been a fantastic documentary on Sky, Story of a Genius, and it was like Kevin Peterson, they couldn't deal with the character, so they got rid of one of the most talented, if not the most talented.
Some of his behaviour was questionable, though, in terms of affecting the dynamics of the group. From what I saw there,
but I can imagine
it was questionable.
I can imagine that's what Eddie Jones is thinking, right? He doesn't want to take a risk on a character like Danny Cipriani for that very reason.
But the thing about it is, I don't know if, only the Gloucester folk will tell us if he's had that negative impact on the dressing room. If he comes out and says that, then that's fine. But I watched that documentary, and a lot of the players said, Andy Strauss said, there ain't no player, we didn't have a player like Kevin Peterson, the best I've ever seen. But it wasn't about cricket. It was about the way he'd behaved, sending texts and all of that alleged stuff. And as someone that comes from a team environment, I understand that. But in my opinion, I'd have still found a way to get him in the side, because he would have guaranteed us winning stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that somehow they should have got him in the side.
Well, talking of England winning stuff, we can't, of course, win the Ashes. We can draw the series, but only if we can get Steve Smith out. Australia 147 for 4. I've done it again, Morts. Labuschagne has gone, which is good news at tea time, but Steve Smith looking typically hard to move.
Yeah, and it's his technique that kind of baffles the England bowlers, I feel. You look at old archive footage of Don Bradman, and it's so funny because old cricketers are starting to question whether their technique was ever right and whether we're actually teaching kids the totally wrong technique of batting, because you look at the two best ever batsmen in terms of averages, which is Don Bradman and Steve Smith, and they both look awkward at the crease, they both leave the ball very oddly. They both kind of move across their stumps. There's so many moving parts that you would just never ever think of teaching a kid, but it worked for them. And didn't it work for them? Steve Smith, of course, if he scores 303 runs over these 2 innings, he will beat Don Bradman's record for the most ever runs in an Ashes series, and he's missed a test and a half, which is quite incredible. To rival Don Bradman and miss a test and a half, I mean, it's kind of indescribably good. And I think that's how England are feeling. They're kind of, they just are in awe of his presence at the crease.
Paul, going into this series, did you feel like England could win it?
Yeah, I thought we could. I thought Australia going into it, I suppose number one because we hadn't seen them as much of them. We're still thinking, well, they've not been great. You couldn't say they've been spectacular, but they have played really good cricket. In terms of bowlers, I think they've had the better set of bowlers, irrespective of the conditions. They've had the better set of bowlers. One thing I'll say about Steve Smith and Don Bradman, who I wasn't around then. I actually wasn't. The best analogy I can use is a sport I know, which is football. It's that you coach the individuality out of players. Now, if you look at Steve Smith, it's almost like he hasn't been coached. I mean, he has been coached. He's taken the techniques, but he's improvised on them.
Yeah.
So he's got all the techniques, but he'll make them work the way he wants them to work.
Well, what I love as a sports fan, which is where, unfortunately, the only kind of knowledge I can speak of, is I love the players that look like it's an individual, unique talent. And the thing I can relate it to is Bubba Watson in golf, and he has the strangest swing, and he goes about it in the most bizarre way, and he has never had a single golf lesson in his life.
This conversation annoys me so much, right? Because we're talking about these guys who play sport in unconventional ways, and we're sitting there going, he's got the weirdest swing you've ever seen, but he's a genius. Whereas with me, he's got the weirdest swing you've ever seen, but he's absolutely useless.
Do you know why? You see, because you were on the conveyor belt where they were getting sprinkled with the dust. That makes them special. It came to you, and I think there was some sort of malfunction, and it moved on. And Bubba Watson was behind you, and he got
all of it.
Tiger Woods got it, and then Rory McIlroy got it. But Johnny Burrows, it missed out on that day. I'm sorry, my friend.
There must be something. I think there's a sport that's never been invented where I will be the Steve Smith. And when that happens, even if I'm geriatric and in the old people's home, I'll be ringing Paul Mortimer and saying, "Oi, hoverboard frisbee, I am world class."
Do you ever think you could pick up like a curling stone or something and just be natural at it? Like there's a sport out there already that you are a genius at.
No.
I'll be honest, I can't see it.
No, Mort's has seen me in shorts. He knows I'm doing. Listen, we'll be giving updates from throughout the day from the Ashes. Australia, of course, 147 for 4.
Yeah, I just want to say this is not a bad position. I think this is shaping up to be a really decent test match. And I'm not just saying that because I'm going on Sunday and I really want it to be a really good test match.
Oh, yes.
But, Australia are exactly halfway to England's total. Now, of course, Steve Smith is still there. But even if Australia get 80 runs more than England, that is still a very nicely balanced game. And we felt like a lot of England batsmen were getting in and getting out. If one of them makes a big score, Burns looks in decent touch. Root arrived at the crease looking like the old Root. Stokes, of course, is flying high at the moment. Joss Buttler made a really crucial 80-odd in that first inning. So I think there's a lot of positives to be had so far.
I'm with you, but the big word that you're using is if. I mean, I'm surprised Labuschagne got out, because the weird thing about Labuschagne is he's been probably their second best player. Had Smith been fit, we wouldn't even. He was a sub.
Yeah.
I mean, what sub have we got?
No, true.
that could come on and do that. It just isn't. It's ridiculous. We'd not have heard of him if Smith had been fit. And look at him.
And that's the thing. We thought at the time when Smith got hit by the ball. Yeah. Yes. I mean, obviously, firstly, hopefully he's okay, but also possibly good news. All that happens is they go, "Oh, by the way, our reserves are really good too."
Love sport. If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit weedooh.com. We Do, the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes. Think the energy price cap will save you money? Think again. You could be saving a lot more on cheaper energy tariffs. Price comparison site A Spokesman Said will show you just how much money you could be saving against your current tariff. Don't throw away your hard-earned money to the energy companies. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could switch to cheaper bills in minutes.
aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle, or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
Lots to come on Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. Our top story this afternoon, we're talking about Sir Dave Brailsford, the sad news that he's been diagnosed with prostate cancer, but the hope that when he gets his prognosis after his surgery tomorrow, we will have some good news to bring you, talking more broadly about prostate cancer as well. We're also talking about Manchester United. Marcus Rashford has been singing the praises of his manager, saying Solskjaer is amazing because he was a United player. He gets it and he gets his players. The subtext, of course, is that Jose Mourinho didn't. All that and more cricket updates to come. But first up, it's the news.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 4. Boris Johnson's been heckled during a speech in Rotherham.
Like our MPs, Boris.
Yes, indeed.
Parliament, yeah?
Yes, I'm all in favour of our MPs.
Why are you not with them in Parliament?
Would you?
The mess that you have created.
The Prime Minister was talking at the Convention of the North event. He was shouted at by someone in the audience who said, "Get back to Parliament." Meanwhile, the PM has said he's cautiously optimistic about securing a Brexit agreement. He claims there's a rough shape of a deal in place as he prepares for talks with European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker. A man aged 19 has been jailed for 16 years after ordering a gun and ammunition on the dark web. A court heard Carl Davis from Gloucester was obsessed with mass shootings. The family of a teenager who died after eating a Byron restaurant are demanding a change in the law. 18-year-old Owen Carey told staff he was allergic to dairy but was served chicken marinated in buttermilk. A coroner's ruled he was reassured the meal didn't contain any allergens. The father of Natasha Ednan Laperouse, who died after eating a pret-a-manger baguette, says the food industry needs to change.
There's a huge amount to be done, and there are tens of thousands of outlets, chains and individuals. The whole lot of them need to up their games considerably and understand what it's like to be an allergic consumer walking into their restaurant.
The country's biggest supermarkets are cutting their petrol prices after a fall in wholesale costs. Asda was the first to slice 3p off a litre earlier. Tesco, Sainsbury's and Morrison's all now say they'll do the same. And England's cricketers are steadily chipping away at Australia's batting order but still can't get Steve Smith out. He's just resuming after tea on 59 not out, with his team 147 for 4 on day 2 of the final Ashes test of the series. That's the latest. I'm Tanya Snuggs.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
It's Johnny Burrow and Paul Mortimer gearing up for an almighty argument because Marcus Rashford has been talking about his gaffer. Let's hear what he had to say.
Right now, everyone's confident in the manager for one, and we might not be doing what he's telling us to perfection yet, but the initial response to his tactics, his training has been phenomenal. You know,
the players are right behind him.
Yeah, pre-season was.
What does he give that perhaps the previous incumbents haven't?
For me, just a plan. It's not a plan for just this season or a plan for just the next game. It's a plan for years.
But it's difficult for managers to do that because they don't often get years.
I think they need to be backed in the position that we're in now. We don't need this rotation of managers because you never settle.
How different is he to Jose Mourinho?
I think he's very different, but I think it's expected because he's played off the pitch. He understands the players a bit more.
Do you think there's a problem for Mourinho the fact that he wasn't a top-class player? Obviously he's an unbelievably successful manager in other places and did reasonably well here for a while.
I don't think it was a problem for him because he's obviously a top manager and he knows how to. He has his way of sort of reading people. But for me, I think just when a manager's played, they've sort of lived the lifestyle that we've lived, and they might be a bit more understanding.
Marcus Rashford there talking to Gary Lineker for BBC Sport. Interesting, this suggestion that Solskjaer perhaps is better at his job, understands his players better for having been a top-class player himself, won Champions Leagues and so on, and crucially for Manchester United.
It doesn't make you better at your job, first and foremost. You know, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer started really well and has struggled since, and the jury's out. It gives you more of an advantage because you do understand that, you know, when players do things where you're sitting on the sideline going, what the hell is going on? Why is he doing that? You kind of understand a little bit more about it because you've been in it. You've understood. You understand that. Management is more about communication than anything else. It's about being able to get what's in my head into your head in a way that gives you the confidence to be able to go out and implement it successfully. That's what it's about. Playing the game does give you an advantage. There's no disputing that.
No, of course.
But it doesn't mean that you're going to be successful. It doesn't mean that because you've played the game, because how many great players have been terrible managers because they couldn't communicate more than anything else. So it's a little bit of everything. And if you look at Mourinho, he has been successful. His failures recently has happened because he hasn't done something like Wenger did or Ferguson did by reinventing themselves, by understanding his group a little bit more, and by checking his ego out at the door. That's
can't be done.
Exactly, that's the difference. Which is why at this moment in time, you know, you talk about him going back to Real Madrid. I don't know where he would go because players, and also what you have to recognise is players now. The modern player is different. It's a completely different animal because it's not what Mourinho found out is that you don't have to just deal with what's going on the pitch. Social media and all of that, because players are their own individual brands. The club is a huge brand, but players are brands as well.
Well, it's interesting. United, of course, arguably the biggest brand of them all. But Paul Pogba, the central midfield player, only one player, has more followers on Instagram than the club.
He's huge. But if he's not pulling his weight, if it's time for him to go, then it's time for him to go. And I think last season the biggest problem was the issue around Pogba became such a huge distraction that I think someone like Ferguson would have got rid of him for the sake of the club.
But would he have been allowed to? I mean, in this modern era, if Ferguson had gone to Ed Woodward and said, listen, Paul Pogba is not working, Paul Pogba does not buy into the team ethos, I'm not saying that's the case, by the way, but if that is what's going on, I want him out. Is it not possible that even for someone like Ferguson, who ran the club as this kind of behemoth at the top of it, would get told, sorry, mate, he's got X amount of followers on Instagram and he's too valuable?
No, because you see, going into the club, Ferguson would be saying, I am in charge of all decisions around players, who we keep and who we sell. If I'm not in charge of that, if I don't have hands on, if you consider, even now, I read about the Cowley brothers, who've gone to Huddersfield, turned it down initially because they weren't given hands-on autonomy when it comes to dealing with the players. You know, if I don't have that, then I'm sorry, because you can't tell me, you've paid me to sort these players out. That includes getting rid of players.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm doing it all,
exactly,
or I'm not.
Oh, I'm doing it not. Oh, I'm not. Yeah.
On that, and going back to Rashford's comments on Solskjaer, I find it quite frustrating as someone who broadly works in football, who talks about football, and who is, by my own admission, a fully awful football player. Because it sometimes feels like there is an arrogance, and it is in part justified, not from you ever, because you're a very modest guy, but from ex-pros as a group, where there's this kind of belief that we've been there and done it, and therefore we get it on this higher plane. There is no way that you can ever understand the game in which we understand it because we played it. And
it's the truth.
To an extent,
it's the truth.
There is a truth in that. In that I don't know the atmosphere in the dressing room. I don't know what it's like dealing with the fans, and so on.
It's not that. It's the you don't know the getting up at 7, it's stupid o'clock in the morning. You don't know the not going out with your mates. You don't. And this, you have to remember, this starts at 10.
Yeah.
So by the time you get to 20, you've had 10 years of sacrifice. It's the stuff no one sees that they're talking about.
No, and I'm sure that's right, but does that make you a better manager? Does that make you necessarily a better pundit? I find it very interesting, for example, when I'm watching Match of the Day, and you always have that sofa with elite ex-players on it, right? And some of them are very good pundits. I like Ian Wright a lot. Some of them are less good. Alan Shearer, no disrespect, seems to me to get paid the best part of £500,000 to say that was a good header 3 times a week.
No, I agree.
And I appreciate that Alan Shearer is one of the greatest strikers to ever play, and therefore has a voice that is significant.
But he didn't play in this era. That's the thing, see?
I find it very interesting that they wouldn't put, for example, as pundits, elite journalists, because you can have players who are both. You can have players like yourself who've been very good and also now think about the game.
What could a journalist tell you about the game?
But they could. This is the point, right? This is like with Jose Mourinho.
What gravity does a journalist have? They've only been at one side of the fence. They've not sat in a dressing room cowering, terrified to go out and play. They've not been sent off and walked into the dressing room, to face it. They've not. So they can talk about what they're seeing.
Yeah.
And eloquently, because they write well. That's all they can do. Don't put a journalist next to me and let us talk about football. He don't know what he don't know. He hasn't coached yet. What does he know?
But in a sense, he does. He doesn't know, as you say, the getting up. He doesn't know the going out. But if we take Mourinho as an example of someone who played a bit, but is effectively a student of the game, which is a cliche, but he literally is that.
Yeah, without a doubt.
He can get it.
Of course he can.
And he can get it at a higher level when we're talking tactically than the vast majority of ex-elite players. There are some who are superb, but lots, as you said, who aren't.
Look at Marcus Rashford. He will get it more than Marcus Rashford because he's been in the game longer. Marcus Rashford's been in the game since he's as a pro at the highest level since he was about 18. In terms of tactics, because Mourinho will have devised tactics.
But it's not just experience. You're spot on with Mourinho, but when he breaks through as kind of Bobby Robson's right-hand man at Barcelona and all of that, and when he, as a young man, first takes that Porto team and wins the Champions League, that isn't actually experience so much as it is nous, and it's instinct, and it's studying. And he hasn't played, and he doesn't probably get it in the way that Solskjaer can.
He's been fortunate, because you see, under Bobby Robson, he was in the dressing room. And he was in the dressing room literally invisible. Because he was a translator or whatever. He's invisible. The players are fine with him. You'd see they'd be relaxed. He's not a threat to them.
He's the fly on the wall.
Exactly. So he is even in a better situation because he sees the players vulnerable. He sees them angry. He sees everything that people... And what he does, because I think he's a psychology student as well, he can see the mental makeup and how it works. Literally invisible.
So for you... if Mourinho hadn't had that experience of being in a dressing room, he couldn't have done what he did.
No, of course he couldn't have. Because also he's been out... If you consider what club he was at, he knows the ins and outs of the club. Again, invisible. He'd have been sitting with Bobby Robson through everything. Invisible. Because of who he was. He wasn't... I don't think he was a coach at the time. He was a translator. So everything goes through him. He gets every little nuance and understands... Because he's got to tell Bobby Robson what's going on. So
he could just lie.
Exactly.
The players think I should be the manager, Bobby.
So he... And the thing about it is... It's like having, a system manufacturer... Kitman. It's like having the kitman in there. Because he's invisible. So he will see absolutely everything that goes on, okay? And if he wants to, he could learn so much about coaching, tactics, communication, mindset, everything you can think of. So he was well prepared for Porto when he went in.
So do you not think it's possible that we could take a hyper-intelligent person and educate them, steep them in football and the knowledge of the game, and bring them up to be a kind of Alex Rider of football management. Everything is geared towards being this tactical mastermind, and put them in the game with professional players, work their way up from the bottom, and them to be a top coach. Because I look at the whole league system, and this idea that you need to play 200 times for Plymouth to be able to be a coach seems a little bit old-fashioned.
You see, the thing, there's a bit of difference between a coach and a manager.
Okay, well, manager.
Okay. And the thing, the most important thing is the communication aspect. Is being able to communicate with your players. Now, you could be the most intelligent, articulate, well-rounded coach in terms of all of that stuff, but if you can't communicate, forget it. And the players will there is no one better than sorting a manager out than the players. The players will tell you within 10 minutes whether they're having that manager or not. Now, when you talk about people being in the game and not in the game, if you were to go and deliver, whatever it was, to the players,
I would be hopeless. I know that
anyone who's an outsider will get 5 minutes. I could go in there because they know I played, and I could read from the back of the yellow pages. They'd lap it up because they trust me, because they know I know.
So someone who hasn't been a former player isn't going to get the respect whatever happens. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is it's going to be slightly more difficult, because you see, you have no frame of reference for them to go by. There's no information. For example, when I was a kid, I coached at Fulham, Charlton, coached the under-14s, and I made a point of not telling them who I was.
Right.
Not telling them that I was a player, nothing. And then one of the brighter ones, Googled my name and then saw one of my goals. That was it, Adam. I didn't even do anything. Said I had a top-notch celebration as well. But you see, because they know, from there onwards, they know I know.
Yeah.
And there's some comfort for them in that, because they understand that I know the mental aspects and the torture that they go through.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes others don't.
I think that's a really good point. But if I'm being properly cynical, and if I go back to Rashford and I go back to Solskjaer and I spin it the other way, he's saying Solskjaer is a top manager because he's been there, he's done it, he's won Champions League, he gets us, he can relate to us as players. Absolutely, fair enough. That gives him a big advantage. If I'm being critical, I look at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and I take that and I spin it and I go, you know what? You've got that advantage. You can communicate with them. They can relate to you. They respect you. And if we're being honest, you're still not doing a superb job.
That doesn't make him a top manager. It's like I said, it's a combination of things. Put luck in that as well.
Yeah.
Combination of things. Because I'm a great communicator, if I technically or tactically am not astute, I may be able to communicate, but the vision I'm showing them is terrible. You know, I've got to be proficient, competent at them all. And I look at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and I think, I'm not having him. There's something about him that isn't right for me, and I just don't see it. And I think they'll struggle this year. I think what's keeping them is the quality of players they've got. Whenever they fire, and they'll fire every now and again, but I don't think they're consistent enough to even finish in the top 5.
Damning from Paul Mortimer, who I think has comprehensively beaten me in our little discussion there. So I will distract myself with an update from the Ashes. Australia 156 for 4. Steve Smith, surprise, surprise, still there. 62, not out, and looking fearsome as ever.
This is Love Sport.
Mr. Davies, to start your car insurance policy, you'll have to pay upfront £850 for the year in one single payment. How does that sound?
£850?
Yes, Mr. Davies.
In one go?
Yes, Mr. Davies.
Today?
Yes, Mr. Davies.
In one single payment?
Yes, Mr. Davies.
What?
With new Aviva Plus, we won't ask you to pay everything up front. Everyone pays monthly at no extra cost. New Aviva Plus, car insurance the way it should be. Excludes Northern Ireland.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you. And making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support. From how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search One You.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle, or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Alright, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Putin is a great singer. I love him in that musical, Putin on the Ritz.
Love sport.
Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. Johnny Burrow and Paul Mortimer with you until 7. Very fortunate to be joined on the line by Jason Kerr, who's Somerset cricket club head coach. I do apologise, Jason. I really am. Jason, I'm having a mare. Thank you for joining us. Congratulations for a start. You are nearly there. Somerset have gone top of the county championship with a convincing 298-run win against Yorkshire. Can you go all the way?
I think if we play like we have done the last two games, there's no reason why not. I was really pleased when we watched the performance against Yorkshire. As you say, it was comprehensive, but it was a tricky surface at Taunton, and I thought we adapted brilliantly. And to play and win the way we did gives us a lot of confidence going into these games.
Jason, how difficult is it to win a county championship? I mean, it seems a really tough thing to do. I mean, what has to go right over a season for you?
Well, I think we've won 9 out of 12 games, and to me it's about consistency. So if you can deliver, I talk a lot about concentrating on the process, which is really important. I think if you can deliver your skills consistently over the summer, because again, if you look at the county championship, lots of sides are beating each other. Essex are obviously close on our heels. They've won 8 games. They're about to draw at Edgbaston. It is really difficult to win. Often it goes down to the last or the penultimate game, and it looks like it's going to do that again.
Jason, we're here watching the Ashes, and we've of course enjoyed a couple of Somerset lads playing really well for England this series, Jack Leach and Craig Overton. How do you feel as a club watching them? Because there must be pride there, but is there also a little bit of frustration that you haven't got them helping you out at the domestic level?
Not really. I mean, immensely proud, definitely. You're wishing them to do very well on the international stage. But we're a really aspirational club, and we want more guys to represent England and to sustain, long careers. We've obviously, Josh Butler came through our system and he's doing brilliantly, and that's great to see. But it'd be great for Leach, if he plays for a decade. So international cricket, we'll all be immensely proud of that. But it creates opportunities at Somerset, and if we look this week, guys have come in, who haven't played a huge amount and stepped up and delivered. So it's about, as a club, we have to make sure we've got strength in depth. And produce as many players for England as we can.
But how irritating is it for you when one of your players does come in, does okay, Craig Overton, and then is out?
Yeah, it is frustrating because you want them to have a run. It's really hard to come in and out the side. I think you've seen from Chris Wilkes today. He's been out of the side, suddenly comes back in. I'm sure he's putting a lot of pressure on himself to perform. It makes the game that much harder. It is frustrating, but it's one of those things that's out of our control. And then when Craig gets his next opportunity, which hopefully will be in this winter, it's up to him to make sure he does enough to stay in the side.
Jason, in terms of today's Ashes action, Australia 160 for 4. Steve Smith, in typical style, looking very, very stubborn, 66 not out. If you were preparing a team to go out and face a side with Smith in that lineup, how are you gearing them up for it, both in terms of the tactics of the field, of the deliveries, and also just psychologically? How do you make your bowlers feel like they've got a prayer?
Well, I think that's the challenge, isn't it? For me, it's more of a mindset. I think England, it looks like they've got a sense of inevitability that they're never going to get him out, and they're trying different things. A good ball's still a good ball on any surface. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's been outstanding. He does look like he's immovable. And they've played on some good surfaces as well, but I think you've got to keep, he wants to score runs, and ultimately, if you can create enough pressure where he's not scoring runs, eventually he'll make a mistake. But I'm sure it looks like they've tried plan A through to Z at the minute and not been successful.
We got some good news for you, I think, haven't we, Paul?
I think so, yes. It's not Steve Smith, but...
It's not Steve Smith, there is a wicket, it's Jofra.
Yeah.
So Marsh is out, is he?
It's Marsh is out, and guess who caught it?
Jack Leach.
Jack Leach, it's correct, and he did it with his specs on, which, as you know,
behave yourself.
No, I love it. No, seriously, because I'm here, and we've spoken to Jason on the show before. He knows I'm a spectacle-wearing man.
Listen, I'm a spectacles on. Yeah, every now and again. Jason, I wanted to ask. I mean, if you look at England, and you know, because you're in charge of Somerset, you're never quite sure of their top 4 or 5. At some point, do you just pick people and stay with them and just leave them for a whole series? Because this constant chopping and changing must be very difficult for the players.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things all players strive for is to have that role clarity. So they know exactly what they're doing from game to game. I think when you are chopping and changing, it adds pressure, it makes the game harder. It's been a real challenge within domestic cricket, opening the batting. Barca, Alistair Cook, you know, a lot of openers have struggled, and I think that's more to do with conditions and the time of year that we're playing. But, you know, for me, I agree with you. I think it's important you pick someone and you back them, and you give them a run in that position. They need to feel backed, and it'll give them the best chance to perform.
Well, Jason, from a Somerset point of view, 10 of your bowlers have now taken a 5-wicket haul in the county championship this season. That is quite incredible. What's that down to?
Well, I think one of the things we looked at, I think if you're going to win a county championship, historically, you either have 2 bowlers that get 60 wickets plus and 2 batters that get 1,000 runs, or you have to perform really well as a unit, and that's what we've done. We've had lots of people contribute through the years at crucial times, in key moments in games, and I think that's been our strength this year as we've played more as a team. You know, the par Lewis Gregory, who's having an outstanding summer, got 40 odd wickets at 14 or something before his injury. They were working really well as a unit, and I think that's, as I say, has been our strength this summer.
Well, Jason, it's been lovely to speak to you as ever. Good luck for the rest of the season. We're all behind you, so fingers crossed for a county championship title. Jason Kerr there, Somerset Cricket Club head coach. Great to chat to him, and great to have Jack Leach catch the ball while we were talking to his gaffer. You called me up on the glasses thing there. You thought I was mocking Jack, and I've got to clarify.
No, I wasn't.
I love the fact he plays in his specs as a sort of slightly odd looking bloke with glasses. I'm talking about myself, not Jack Leach. It is very nice to see other slightly odd looking blokes with glasses play elite sport to a high level. Were you ever tempted to run the midfield with your glasses on?
No, contact lens it was for me in the end. No, you can't. See, you can't play football with glasses on. That's ridiculous.
Well, you'll be surprised to hear that I, as a lad, before I started wearing contacts to play, wasn't an imperious header of a football, despite being quite tall, because I had these very, very cool, and they were very cool, sports goggles.
With the elastic round the back.
Elastic round the back, and they were gold, so I looked really, really fetching.
So you didn't get any stick from your mates then?
No, never. Okay. Would you have been intimidated as a midfield player if you'd been lining up and you'd seen in the opposition team a lanky lad with sports goggles on? Because I think that's a terrifying sight.
The only person I remember wearing goggles, I think it was because of glaucoma, was Edgar Davids. Now, if you were him at his peak, yes, I would be.
I'm not.
But if you were sort of big sticks lining up against me, I'm not so sure.
What?
I'm not so
big
sure.
Sticks? I'm not having this. We're moving on quickly.
No, listen. We had when I was at Villa, we had a player called Ian Ormondroyd, and we used to call him Sticks because he was like 6'7" with the longest legs you've ever seen.
That's the way to be. Work for Peter Crouch. We're going to move on. Our top story today is Sir Dave Brailsford. We're all very much hopeful for a positive prognosis for him tomorrow when he gets the results following surgery on his prostate cancer. Sad news, of course, that he was diagnosed at such a young age, 55. And I think it is shocking for all of us, Morts, any man from any age up, that someone who is so health conscious can actually get this disease.
Well, ultimately, I mean, I know initially the emotional aspect is it's sad news. I don't think it's sad news because it's been caught at some point. The sad news would have been if he'd caught it a month later or 2 months later, when it would have been far more aggressive. So I think whenever you catch it early, it's great news because it gives those wonderful doctors the opportunity to actually weave their magic and make him well again. So as much as we do emotionally, it's such sad news, it isn't for him because it's been caught hopefully early enough and he'll get the news today, and fingers crossed everything is fine. But I get what you're saying. When you're fit and strong and you're in that kind of environment, listen, You can't choose it. It chooses you. And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you are. And like I say, the important thing is if it is you, it's caught early enough.
It does seem very unfair, though, doesn't it, when someone very healthy gets it? I remember my late grandmother smoked literally 50 a day, sort of properly 50 a day. We're talking, there are chimneys on factories in Manchester that look very, very pale in comparison to this woman. And she got throat cancer in her 70s, which is obviously very, very sad. And I remember saying to her, do you want to slow down on the smoking? She's going, the smoking got nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it.
The smoking's got nothing to do with it, mate.
You're smoking 50 a day and you've got throat cancer. Understandable.
Well, it's what she is.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
And to be fair, she did the equivalent of getting back on the exercise bike. She kept smoking 50 a day and she enjoyed herself. So,
fair play. That's what it's about.
Enough. But I think and I'm not the healthiest man in the world, but I'm young, I'm broadly fit. My first response, if I got a diagnosis of this kind, I think before the worry and the pain and the fear, would actually be anger, which isn't rational, but just that feeling of, well, why?
Yeah, why are you?
That isn't fair.
Of course.
And amazing that he's been able to react to it so positively. I know you're someone who has got tested in the last year or so, which is a great thing to have done, but does this kind of story make you more likely to do it? You hear about a guy who was warned that there were signs there that he should get checked out. He ignored them because he didn't have the time, which we're all very, very guilty of. And actually, when he finally did, as you said, he caught it in time. Surely the message here is actually there are things, even if you're brilliant, even if you're at the very, very top of your field, that are more important than work.
We all have time. Part of that, I haven't got time, is avoidance, is hiding. Of course it is. The last thing you want is to actually go through that not knowing stage and all of that. So, but everyone can get tested. Everyone should get tested. There is absolutely no point where anyone can tell me they haven't got time to save their lives. To take a test that might save their lives. You have to make the time.
It's interesting, though, because I, for example, just don't. And I haven't, and it might be because I'm young. And to be fair, if you're young, you're not statistically at that much risk of prostate cancer. I know we're going to talk to someone from...
But it's not on your radar.
But this is the thing, and we're going to talk to someone from Prostate Cancer UK later, who I'm sure will be able to explain to me that actually I really do need to go and get checked. But the thing for me is melanoma, which is skin cancer, where if you've got moles, I've got a lot of moles, I don't know why, I just do, you're a lot more at risk. And I've kind of got enough that I don't keep track of them, and I'm fully aware,
well, you should.
Academically, that I should be, and I should be checking, and I just don't. And actually, this kind of story is a wake-up call for all of us. So if you're listening to this, ring your doctor, book something in, go and get yourself checked out, and let's make sure that we can all catch it nice and early. Lots on this throughout the show. And coming up, we're talking Derby County, who could be in a spot of bother.
This is Love Sport. Home insurance is vital. You don't want to end up paying through the nose when something goes wrong. But are you being charged way too much for your home cover? Are your insurance premiums simply too much to bear? It doesn't have to be that way. A spokesmansaid.com is a price comparison website that trawls the internet to find the best deal for you. Don't pay the price for not shopping around. Visit a spokesmansaid.com and start saving today.
A spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Alright, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it, you just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F. Face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A. Arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S. Speech. Is their speech slurred? T. Time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
This is Love Sport.
Imagine the scene. Steve Smith finally slips up. He hits one up in the air. You've got an elite level cricketer, the captain of England, no less, waiting there with the ball flying towards him. Joe Root, mouth open, thinking, I'm going to catch this ball. We're finally going to get him. No, you're not, Joe. You've dropped him. Again, Steve Smith, 66 not out.
You're a hard man.
Paul Mortimer, it cannot be my imagination that we've dropped this bloke a lot this series.
We have dropped him a lot. I mean, that was a quick catch. The thing is, you know, when it appeared, when he clipped it, it kicked on a bit in pace. So it came to him really quickly. And it's one of those, a couple of things happen. He either catches it, goalkeeper style, or he diverts it up into the air so someone else can catch it, or it slips through his hands.
Like volleyball.
Yeah. But it moves so quickly. So it wasn't an easy catch, but like you said, at this level, with who it is, we have to take those catches, my friend. We have to.
You really do.
Yeah.
Is there an element with someone like Smith, who is obviously an elite level world class sportsman, that it isn't actually a coincidence that the best batsman is also the one who gets dropped the most? Is that luck just random?
No, it can't be. When you consider how many times it happens, because you see, the thing about him, he is such a prized wicket that if the ball is coming to you, you know it's Steve Smith. You know what's going to happen if you drop it. So you're not concentrating, and that's why it's a catch you'd take 99.9% of the time.
So what you're saying is Joe Root can see the ball coming towards him, and he's thinking, "Don't drop it."
Not in this case. Not in this case. No, it's just too quick. It's one of them that goes miles in the air. And you've got a lot of time to. The worst thing to do is to have time to think, because now you're thinking, oh my God, he's coming to me. It's Steve Smith. Can't this go to someone else? Oops, I've dropped it. Oh no, look at the grief I'm going to get. And I've dropped him on 18, and he goes on to make 211. Cheers.
It's interesting, those players who are at their best when they don't have to think. I always used to feel, watching David James, that if you made David James make a reaction save, a shot on the volley from 6 yards out, he's the best goalkeeper in the world.
Yeah, I agree.
Unbelievable reaction time. If you put a looping ball into the box, swinging away from him slowly, and you can just see him looking at it, you can hear the gears clunk going, do I come? Can I get there? Maybe I can get there. Maybe I should stay on my line. What happens? He goes halfway and it's in the back of the net.
Do you know what, Johnny? I don't even think he's thinking that. He's saying, I'm going to come, I can get this. Even though I've got to catch a cab and 2 trains to get there, but I'm going to get there. And the problem that you have is, it's a problem I have with Southern, is one of the trains is cancelled and the other one's running slowly. So he gets there by the time the ball's in the net, mate.
David James relying on the 442 from Southwark Station. Let down yet again. Very frustrating indeed. Yeah, I know what you mean. When the ball is flying at you, you just catch it. You catch it or you don't. In my case, I never catch it, but that's
difficult. I just thought, I saw a little snapshot of it. I thought it's a catchable catch, but you'd be going, great catch. It's not an easy one, but it's catchable. And at this level, especially with Joe Root's a fairly safe pair of hands. But you know, it's where we are at the moment. You know, we need those little things to happen for us, and they're not.
There have been lots of people questioning Joe Root, not just as there's a big appeal for leg before wicket from Curran, not given. No. There have been lots of people questioning not just his performances as a batsman, because actually he's put in that top bracket.
Yeah, he is. He's one of the top 3 or 4 in the world.
And actually, next to Steve Smith in this series, he's been shown to not quite be in that bracket.
It's not at that level,
But there have also been people questioning more broadly, questioning the quality of his captaincy. For example, is it fair to start looking at Joe Root the leader, Joe Root the tactician, or is that just a kind of knee-jerk response to a whole team which is underperforming?
Well, yeah, I mean, the team's underperforming. I mean, if we'd batted anything like we could, the bowling's been okay. If we batted anything like we could, we'd have been more competitive in this. I don't know if that's down to Joe Root. I don't know what he can do about that. You know, when players who should put in performances aren't putting in performances, we can swap them over and all that business, fine. But however we swapped them, we haven't found an opener. Maybe with Rory Burns we have now, since Alistair Smith and Strauss, we haven't found a decent number 3. Joe Root doesn't want to play there. they're big problems because match after match, they're the areas that cause us problems. If you consider Joe Root, how many times I watch the cricket and I think, well, our number 3, 4 and 5 should at least have until lunch before they come in. Should at least have 3/4 of a day before they come in. Our lot are getting in before lunch. Our bowlers are getting in before the end of the day. It's ridiculous.
Is this a case of the England openers being terrible, or should I say just the England openers not performing? Or is actually what we're seeing, and we're missing it because of our frustration, but what is happening in front of our eyes is a gradual change of approach to cricket? Because when Burns and Denley made 27 as that opening pairing, we were still looking at that and going, 27 as an opening partnership, that is terrible. That was the highest opening partnership in terms of runs tally by any opening pair of either side in this whole series. So is it the case that the openers are rubbish, or actually, in the way that the traditional number 9 is less of a thing in football now than it was 20 years ago, are we moving towards a test game, as it were, where the openers are less important, and actually it's the guys at 4, the guys at 5 who are going to do the most of the legwork?
Well, I hope not, because our 4 and 5 aren't doing it. I mean, Joe Root, you know what, once he got to 50, I'm already thinking, well, he'll only have a couple of balls and he'll be out, because he doesn't convert 50s to 100s at the moment. He seems to struggle to do that. I would like to see a time where our openers stay in for a day, or 3/4 of a day, and because I think sometimes 3, 4 and 5 need to just rest, need to settle a little bit. And just watch, get a finger on the pulse of how it's going. Blow me, before they even do that, I think I read somewhere where 3, 4 and 5 didn't have his pads on, and had to rush to get his pads on because the wickets were falling, and at this elite level that shouldn't be happening.
And the really frustrating thing that frankly is doing my head in watching the England openers isn't the fact that they're getting out so much as the nature of those dismissals. There is so much of just swinging at something with really hard hands where you think that is so clearly pitching outside leg or outside off or wherever. Leave it be, Kieran, surely.
Yeah, they should be a little bit better on the temperament side of things. But I just wanted to bring this back. You know, if we're going to slag off the England openers, let's slag off the Aussie openers.
Well, always.
David Warner now has
barely made a run, has he?
He's now had 8 single-figure dismissals in this series out of 9 innings. Which is the most ever by a Test match opener, and Test matches have been going on for a blooming long time, you know. So this is a guy who's meant to be, you know, one of Australia's key players, and we've really had the wool over his eyes. He's barely played a shot in anger.
Kieran, you're doing what I call our nation's disease. Is we're rubbish, but look at them, they're worse. That doesn't change the fact that we're rubbish, because they're still winning. David Warner didn't need to bat well.
No.
Because, I mean, like I said, their sub is probably the second best batsman on the tour.
Yeah,
you know?
Well, this is it. I mean, these are the fine margins in cricket, though. Marnus Labuschagne shouldn't have been in this team.
No.
And everyone's been criticising England selectors for their dodgy picks, i.e. Jason Roy at the top of the innings. Well, you know, Marnus Labuschagne, as you said earlier, Morts, wouldn't have got a game. He would have been carrying the drinks.
But you see, the thing about it is, Kieran, this is the thing that irritates me, and I think we're at a moment in cricket, and I think this is doing us, people like Jason Roy are doing us a huge favour, because just because you're proficient or very good at the white ball doesn't mean you're good at the red ball. And I feel sorry for Jason Roy. I'm angry at cricket because he's done magnificently well in the white ball cricket, in the World Cup. He's done really well. Now, first time round, it's not like he's an experienced England batsman. No break, no rest. He's gone straight into the red ball cricket, and people expect him to be able to be proficient. Now, it's almost like the difference between rugby league and rugby union. If you a rugby union star, and then tomorrow you go straight into rugby league with no real practice, and you're expected to play at an elite level against one of the best bowlers in the world, the best rugby players in the world, that's a recipe for disaster. No one else is going to do that, are they?
Yeah, but more, it's like elite level sportsmen are expected to be adaptable now. Why is that? You know, they're expected to be titans.
I think we hoped. I think we went in and hoped.
Yeah.
We hoped that the momentum could move on. I think we hoped, and the momentum, doesn't help technique.
No.
If your technique is rubbish, momentum, desire, passion, all of them will not improve your technique. If you keep getting bowled the way he has and Bairstow has, your technique needs to change, and they haven't recognised it, and they haven't done anything at this level. When you think about the stats, all I ever see there is them with laptops watching this, that, and the devil knows what. Surely they should see Jason Roy's being bowled often the same way. Now, after that happens twice, you should be saying that's never going to happen again, mate. But it did.
Just leave it alone. I really don't see what is complicated about this. I know people get annoyed when idiots like me, who are terrible at sport, oversimplify things. And I will be open with this. I am a shocking batsman. I am scared of the ball. I've never hit a six in my life. But precisely because I'm scared of the ball, Morts, I see it coming towards me. And if it is going anywhere other than straight at my face, leave it alone. Leave it alone.
Because the thing about a white ball cricket is it's not a game of patience. This is, a red ball is about patience, about waiting for the good ball. But he can't wait. He can't wait.
He's got to learn. I'm sorry.
Don't think he can.
You're going to have to wait. We'll be with you very shortly.
Giving your team the coverage they deserve. Love Sport Radio.
Hi, I'm Barry. I'm a retired school bursar from Chingford. I thought I was paying too much for my energy and went onto a spokesmansaid.com and found that I could reduce my costs overall by £568 per annum, and I'm very grateful for that help.
With a spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app. Because there's only one you.
If you've ever had to get out of your car on the side of a motorway, you'll know how it feels. Just imagine what it's like to be working on a motorway. So please, drive carefully, follow the signs, stick to the speed limit, stay in the correct lane, and keep a safe distance from the car in front. People working on our roads are making them safe for all of us. Keep the roads safe for them. Highways England, connecting the country.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
I'm not a snob. I just don't want to be in the same car as my chauffeur.
Love Sport.
Never a dull moment in the Football League. We're hearing today that Middlesbrough are suing the EFL because of Derby's complex deal involving the sale of their stadium. We're joined on the line by Kieran Maguire, who's a lecturer in football finance at the University of Liverpool. Good afternoon, Kieran. Thanks for joining us. Do Middlesbrough have a case here?
Well, there's a couple of rules I think that we need to look at. First of all, are Derby County entitled to sell the ground? Yes, they are. Are they entitled to sell it to the owner? Yes. Does that count towards FFP? Yes. So initially everything looks fine, but then there's a rule in the EFP is that it's got to be sold at what the EFL says, according to their Rule 2.3, at a fair market value. Now, Derby sold the ground for around about £80 million. Now, I'm not a chartered surveyor, I suspect you're not either, so I don't know whether that's a fair value. So therefore, perhaps we ought to look at the values of other grounds which are being sold. Now, West Ham sold the bowling ground for £40 million.
And if you're saying that property prices in Derby are twice that of London, well, that's fine. But I'm not a property expert, and I appreciate I'm up here in the north, but I always thought that London was jolly expensive.
I can say from experience, and my landlord can tell you as well, it is expensive.
Kieran, I've got to say, I mean, the cynic in me, and you've explained it beautifully, the cynic in me, it sounds like there's some skullduggery going on. So what would be the next step? How could this develop?
Well, I think that the appropriate step would be for the EFL to commission an independent valuation, and that person comes up with what they consider to be the market value for Pride Park. And I think, I'm not saying Morris is right or wrong. Clearly, whoever he sold the ground to, he's negotiated a fantastic price. Under normal circumstances, you say, that's really well done, Mel. But the person that bought it was Mel Morris. So it allows the cynic in everybody to query some of the numbers, which they're entitled to, and equally, Derby are entitled to defend it. So I think the EFL, in order to be seen to be acting honourably and objectively, if they can obtain an independent valuation, and that valuation comes back £80 million, job done, you need no further.
Kieran, is there a broader point here, given what we've seen with the likes of Bury and Bolton in the last 6 months, about the stability of football clubs, and actually whether or not you're selling your stadium to the owner? Is selling a stadium a good thing to do for a football club's financial stability?
Well, it's good in the sense that it raises cash and satisfies FFP. But if you then take a look at UEFA's version of financial fair play, and that was the original one, remember, that specifically stated that sales of football grounds and similar assets should be excluded from FFP because it doesn't encourage what is best for the long-term interests of the club. And that used to be the position of the EFL as well. So the EFL adopted the UEFA rules, and then for some reason, and nobody knows why, in 2016 they scrapped that one particular rule, which just seems a bit odd. And I'm not saying there's anything Machiavellian's been done, but it seems very difficult to justify from a business point of view why you would get rid of your biggest long-term asset, because players come and go, managers come and go, chairmen come and go, but the stadium is for most fans is to be something which is going to be there throughout their whole life of being a supporter.
Kieran, where are the other clubs then? I mean, Middlesbrough are suing the EFL, so there are at least 20 other clubs who should be involved. Why aren't they involved in this as well? Why only Middlesbrough?
I think Middlesbrough feel aggrieved because they missed out. I think Middlesbrough came 7th last season, so therefore they missed out on a playoff place by one position, and Derby just sneaked into the playoffs. So I think Steve Gibson feels aggrieved that his side lost out on the opportunity to get to the Premier League as a result of these transactions and similar transactions. If you take a look at the other clubs in the Championship, Reading also sold their ground, but they sold it for 26 million. Now again, I'm thinking, I've been to both Pride Park and the Majesty, and nothing to me gives me the vibe that Pride Park is worth 3 times as much. But again, I'm not a surveyor. I don't know these things. Villa sold Villa Park for 56 million. Again, Villa Park's actually quite a bigger ground than Pride Park, and for Wednesday sold their stadium again to the owner for 60 million. So even at the top end of these other valuations, the figures look a little bit heavy. So some clubs will be saying, well, we don't want to kick up a fuss because we might choose to use this particular rule ourselves at a future date. Whereas Middlesbrough, and Steve Gibson's been very unhappy for a long time. My understanding is also that Leeds United are very unhappy with what has happened at Derby and Villa and so on, because Leeds don't own their own ground. It was actually sold for around about £14 million 10 years ago when Leeds were going through their own financial crisis. So some clubs will be for, some clubs will be against, and some will be in the middle. And I think that's where most clubs are. They're waiting to see what the EFL's reaction is, and to a certain extent, they're quite happy for Steve Gibson to go forwards on their behalf and, in effect, and take it up with the EFL.
Can Middlesbrough realistically argue that there is anything actually financially that they lost from not having that playoff place, even if they can make the logical point that, okay, maybe if Derby hadn't sold it, they wouldn't have finished 6th, and 12 lines of logic down, that impacted on Middlesbrough. Okay, you get a playoff semi-final. Who do you play? What's the result? Home and away. Even if you get to Wembley, which is a huge if, who do you play? Do you win the game? Do you end up in the Premier League? And there are so many different moving parts here. What if they got to a playoff semi-final, and in that playoff semi-final, their 4 best players magically broke their legs? Then you could argue, well, Derby saved you loads of money. How can they actually make a coherent case here?
I don't think they can make a case for loss of Premier League earnings for exactly the reasons that you put forward. I think they're just trying to get a marker from the EFL, perhaps get a bit of money out of the EFL if they are going to sue. But I think that the only winners here are probably going to be the lawyers, which always tends to be the case. If you take a look at what happened with QPR, that was a 4-year crawl through the fine print. And I think the EFL's legal bill was $3 million, or I presume that QPR's was similar. So the other issue from Middlesbrough's point of view is that if this ruling does go in their favour, remember that financial fair play is spread over a 3-year period. So that would mean that Derby's ability to spend in the next transfer window would be severely curtailed. So it could be, from Burrow's point of view, that if they do get a positive outcome from this, then their rival clubs this season will be impacted in the next transfer window, either through being unable to recruit players they would want to sign, or alternatively, and this could be a bigger issue, that they might be forced to sell players who otherwise they wouldn't have wanted to sell, simply to comply with financial fair play.
I think the weird thing for me is that they're suing the EFL. They're suing the league they believe that the league haven't, acted as they should have done, which I find amazing. I've got to say, a club suing the league for something like that. As for Derby, it does appear something's happened. It does appear some sort of skullduggery's happened. Do you think that, the banning, a little bit like Chelsea, the transfer ban, would be enough? How harsh of a sanction and a penalty could Derby get if this all turns out to be the truth?
Well, if the EFL does have an independent valuation, and that gives a far lower market value to Pride Park, then what the EFL will be obliged to do is to recalculate Derby's financial fair play losses over the course of the last 3 years. And therefore, the range of sanctions which would be involved then would be from transfer sanctions, in effectively prohibiting them from signing players in the same way as Chelsea. But the next step up, as we saw with Birmingham City last season, would be a points deduction. Now, that points deduction could be imposed this season. It could be suspended towards next season. We don't know what that would be. So that would be the benefits from Middlesbrough's perspective, but also it would clearly hit Derby, and it does make you feel uncomfortable because none of this has got anything to do with football. And I've always said, in an ideal world, I should never be on your show. In fact, I should be unemployed because financial fair play and all of this nonsense. Whilst it keeps a glorified train spotter such as myself highly entertained 24/7, it's not why we go to football. I've got a Brighton season ticket. I live in Manchester. Tomorrow I should be focusing purely on getting 3 points against Burnley, having 8 hours on the train going down with my mate. But instead, I'm going to be working on another one of these crazy projects.
Well, Kieran,
so
good luck with it. Lovely to speak with you as ever. Thanks for your time. Kieran Maguire there, lecturer in football finance at the University of Liverpool.
This is Love Sport.
Please state your reason for this call.
I would like to end my home insurance policy.
Please state your reason for this call.
End my policy.
Please enter your 12-digit passcode. Policy ended.
Finally.
To confirm end of policy, please enter credit card details and pay £50.
With Aviva Plus home insurance, you can pay monthly at no extra cost and with no cancellation charges. New Aviva Plus. Insurance the way it should be.
Excludes Northern Ireland.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply for quick reply, affects your concentration, and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
Lots to come on Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. You're with me, Johnny Burrow, and Paul Mortimer until 7. Our top story today is the very sad news about Sir Dave Brailsford, who has prostate cancer. He's waiting to hear on a prognosis following surgery to treat that illness. He's going to hear the results tomorrow. We're going to be talking to a representative from Prostate Cancer UK who's going to talk about the importance of people like Sir Brailsford making sure they go and get checked out, particularly when the signs are there, the importance of catching it early. Keep in mind, 1 in 8 men in the UK are going to be diagnosed with this in their lifetime. It's a problem that affects all of us. Make sure you get checked. We're also updates from across the Ashes, a little bit of rugby, and of course a look ahead to the weekend's footballing action. But before all of that, it's time for your latest headlines.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 5. A heckler's told Boris Johnson to get back to Parliament to sort out the mess he's created as he gave a speech in Rotherham. The Prime Minister was talking at the Convention of the North event where he was trying to discuss devolving more powers to cities and regions. Meanwhile, the PM has said he's cautiously optimistic about securing a Brexit agreement. He claims there's a rough shape of a deal in place. The family of a teenager who died after eating a Byron burger have called for a change in the law on labelling. Owen Carey told staff he was allergic to dairy but was served chicken marinated in buttermilk. A coroner's ruled the 18-year-old was reassured by the wording on the menu. His sister is Emma Kotcher. She wants the rules changed.
We want restaurants to have to display clear allergen information on each individual dish on their menus. The food industry should put the safety of their customers first and be proactive in protecting those with allergies.
The firm admits its communication wasn't good enough. A man who ordered a gun and ammunition on the dark web has been jailed for 16 years. Taunton Crown Court heard Carl Davis was obsessed with mass shootings and saw those behind the Columbine High School massacre as his poster boys. England's cricketers are getting into a good position late on day 2 of the final Ashes test against Australia. Live to Guy Swindles at the Oval.
Australia 179 for 7 and still 115 runs behind England. Terrific fight back by England's bowlers, Curran and Archer in particular. Archer has taken 4 wickets, Curran 3, and they've taken 3 of those since tea. It should be even better though. Steve Smith, still there on 75, was dropped on 66.
And fans should now refer to Sam Smith as they or them and not him anymore. 6 months ago, the singer came out as non-binary. That's the latest. I'm Tanya Snuggs.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker.
This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
Johnny Burrow and Paul Mortimer with you for Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive, with you until 7. Ooh, stop laughing.
I've never been called a posh boy.
Do you consider yourself to be?
Absolutely not.
Well, you are today. You're an honorary posh boy.
I shall take that, yeah.
You happy with it?
I
Or
am
is it
happy.
an insult?
I'm just not letting my mates know.
No, fair
They
enough.
give me grief.
Fair enough. Where has Sam Curran been, frankly, Paul? Where has he been in our lives in this Ashes Test team? For the first 4 tests, he was carrying drinks.
He's been in every squad.
Yeah, and now he's just taken 2 wickets in 2 balls, had a chance for a hat-trick ball, which was unfortunately dispatched for 4 by Peter Siddle. He offers something different. He gives us that swing that we lost with that injury to Jimmy Anderson. Has he come in too late?
Well, of course he has. I mean, we don't have... You went back to, Joe Root and captaincy, and because I think the captain's in on the decision-making process as well. And you could question now, when James Anderson, who the leading wicket taker, swings the ball beautifully. What did we really replace him with? And again, the Craig Overton thing irritates me. You bring him in, then have some faith and keep him in. But you whip him out straight away. What does that do to him? Sam Curran has watched everything and now gets his chance. Without a doubt, he's going to be aggrieved, isn't he? Especially as he's come in and done so well. He's going to be aggrieved. And so he should be.
Well, I want to move it on to talk a little bit about technology in sport, which has been very relevant in this Ashes series, relevant in the Premier League as well. The VAR debate, as always, rumbling on and on. And some of these decisions are going right, some of them are going a little bit squiffy. We saw David Warner get the dodgiest of ultra-edge dismissals this morning. And we've had Mike Riley, who's the head referee in this country, admit that 4 VAR decisions should have been overturned. That is to say, there have been 6 decisions made via VAR so far this year. That was in the first 4 game weeks. There should have been a further 4. Now, how are we looking at this? Are we saying that there were 227 incidents in the first 4 weeks, VAR got us an extra 6, or are we looking at it negatively and saying it should have got all 10?
Well, what was VAR brought in to do?
It was brought in to eliminate errors in refereeing.
Exactly right. Has it done that?
To an extent.
To an extent, but Mike Riley has admitted to 4 blunders, and they've got pictures of him here. The Callum Wilson tackle, I think it's from Yuri Tielemans.
Yeah.
The blind man at the back of the stand said he should have got sent off. he didn't even have to look at it. He heard about the ooh and the ah. So, there's a lot. There are going to be, because you see, the thing about it is, as much as we use VAR, the VAR is about the human eye still. It is still. And you know what worries me is, I think it was in the Ashes, not the other day. There was one questioned where it clearly clipped the bat and hit the pad. Everyone could see it, but the umpire, I think, the guy was so scared that he kept saying, no, I have to look at it again. No, I have to look at it again. We could all see it, and that's the problem we have with VAR. There is so much pressure on the person who's making the decision that worried me. I really felt for the guy, because he's now afraid he just kept doing it, he kept doing it, and you're like, no. And what saved him was it was a no ball. So that's what saved him. If it was that, he would have still been there and ahhing. And because we are putting so much pressure on him, because we want to sanitise the game, the jeopardy in the game is what makes it enjoyable. The fact that sometimes a team can improve after being on the receiving end of a terrible decision.
So you wouldn't want football to exist kind of in a vacuum, in this perfect world where every referee sees everything and gets every call right. That doesn't interest you?
Do you know what? I think it would interest me, but I think the way they've implemented it is wrong. What they should have done is said, right, we're going to do it for offsides only or ball over the line only.
Yeah.
They have done it for everything. So, and some of the stuff they've never legislated for happening. They don't know how to deal with it. So just do one thing. They've tried to incorporate far too much, and it's for absolutely everything. Now we're looking at bad tackles. We're looking at people moaning about bad tackles. Offsides and ball over the line. Those two. That's all we're doing it for this year. So anything else that happens, they can do it retrospectively or it goes somewhere else. These are the only things we're dealing, so that we can work on the snagging problems, the issues, how long it takes, all of those things. So by next year, will have put things in place to speed it up and to make it easier. Things like putting it on the screen and letting the fans know. I know there's 2 clubs that don't have screens, but in this day and age, clubs should have screens. I don't care what anyone says. With the money that they're getting from sponsors, stuff, they should have screens. There's no excuse.
And there is another point here, which is the incidents that VAR is missing has serious consequences. So, for example, that Newcastle equaliser for Fabian Schär, which cost Watford a win, cost Javi Gracia his job. Exactly. And if I'm Javi Gracia and I'm reading these Mike Riley comments, I am furious because I am a fan of VAR. I think this idea of going back and getting things right, I like, in principle. But what I still don't understand is on particularly 2 of these other instances, the David Silva non-penalty, Manchester City versus Bournemouth, which seemed to be the second clearest penalty of all time, only because the Haller one for West Ham against Norwich, it was just plain as day. I'm watching that. I'm not a referee. You can see it out the corner of your eye. You could see it reflected in the windscreen of your mum's Polo, and you know that is a penalty.
It's not even a discussion.
I think what we've got here with VAR is we've got a clash between 2 Premier League initiatives. One is the VAR, getting all decisions correct, and the other is equally important, respecting the referee. I think that the people running VAR, the people in that booth with the screens, are too reluctant to overrule the referee because they don't want to make the referee look bad. I'm afraid that's what it's for. For example, the Harry Kane turned down penalty against Newcastle. They said they didn't take that to VAR because these things are subjective.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Every decision is subjective. Literally every decision is subjective in football. It can be a penalty in the rules. It's still a decision. The whole point of VAR is that someone watching it on the telly, and if you and me see it, he's seeing it. Don't be shy. If it makes the ref look a bit silly, it makes the ref look a bit silly. If you are watching it and it goes, Seb Haller's just been brought down, just review it, because if we're going to get into this nonsense, and I think you're right that we shouldn't use it for everything, but if we are, use it for everything. Everything.
I listen. As far as I'm concerned, I'm with you. The problem you have is they're in a situation where they're now picking and choosing which ones are worthy of VAR, which is wrong. Like you said, if there's a flashpoint, which they are, review it.
But then we get back into this old argument, which is it slows the game down.
It does.
Because if we VAR every tackle in the box, which is where we'd end up, game would take 4 hours, wouldn't it,
it would, and when you consider it takes, I think 4.5 minutes is the longest of one's taken. So, you can't 2 of them in a half, or 3 of them in a half, and you're in trouble.
No, you're missing your train home.
Yeah, and do you know what? I've got a problem with that argument in some ways, because if VAR is in action, I want them to get every decision right, or else you're in a weird halfway house between actually incorporating technology into your game and not utilising it for, it's 100% worth. Cricket's got it absolutely right, because it kind of gives the utility back to the teams to say, look, the technology is here, but if you use it wrong twice, then that's it. That's your lot. Tennis is obviously in the privileged position where everything is tracked anyway because the ball's been hit. So Hawkeye is 100% right all the time. Now, football
is like me.
Yeah, just like you, Johnny.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll move on.
Is it Sir Brailsford still? Anyway, carry on.
Football's a frustrating one because, of course, decisions are subjective. And this is why I think Mortz's point on offsides and goal line technology is a valid one, because those are the black and white decisions in football. Anything else should be left down to the referee.
I no truer word, because, like you say, it causes so many problems. And I say again, I went back to, I felt my heart dropped for the guy who was in the booth watching this game. I think it was the Ashes not so long ago, where the ball clearly clipped the bat and hit the pad, but it appeared he was so frightened to make the decision that he just kept saying, I've got to look at it again. He looked at it nearly 7 or 8 times, and we're all sitting there going, even the commentator, I think it was Bumble, was saying, the ball's hit the bat, the ball's hit the bat. what? And he's still going, let me have a look at it again. And that's where we're heading, where they'll be so frightened to make the wrong or make a decision, and that's not what VAR is about or was about when they implemented it in the first place. Is it, or have I got that wrong?
Well, what's the solution? Do we just not bother with any of it and go, listen, referees are human. You have a referee, you have an umpire, you have a couple of people there to help him or her out, and that is it? Or do we put 83,000 cameras in there? Everyone in the stand has a button where they can press it and go,
Ask the audience.
that ref. Ask the audience.
No,
phone a friend.
That's
Hala's just been brought
rubbish.
down. My dad says Hala's just been brought down.
What we should do is dial it back a bit, because I think they've bitten off more than they can chew. That's the thing. If they have just done it for offsides and, like Kieran says, the black and white decisions, because what they can do then is work out all the issues, iron them all out, and then add one more thing. Whatever it is, bad tackle, whichever you want to do, then add one more thing. But and by the way, when it first started VAR, my gripe about it was, when it was talking about offsides and ball over the line, is that's where it will start, but where's it going to stop? And here we are.
But we've got to have it for ball over the line. It is a cliche, but as an England fan, that Lampard ghost goal against Germany, I will never forget.
And no, you see, this is why I don't want it to happen.
What?
Because look at you. You have an emotional attachment to that moment. And,
I do.
But football is about those memories. It's about... See, I love when people talk about that, because it takes me back to my anger.
You're a masochist.
No. Because, you see, what I'm talking about is... When you sit in a pub sometimes, you sit in a pub and you talk about things like this. You have a great discussion about, that was terrible and da-da-da-da. We're not going to have those discussions anymore. All of the discussions...
Yes, we will.
No, because most of them are about jeopardy, are about things that are subjective. When you've got every single decision right, you can't even cuss the ref anymore. You can't, because he's been out.
I still would.
I know you would. just see where I'm at, though. I mean,
I do.
I think we're sanitising the game. And we're taking out the emotional attachment to situations.
But there is an argument that you're adding emotion to the VAR thing. I see a lot of people who hate VAR arguing that the potential for a goal to be overruled 3 minutes later ruins the drama, ruins the spectacle, because you get fans seeing the ball hit the back of the net, and then rather than going, wait, having to sit there and think, well,
they're doing that now. Players are doing it now.
But doesn't that kind of add to the drama? I was watching City Spurs with 10 of my mates, and the Gabriel Jesus goal went in, and we all went, hey, because, Tottenham.
Yeah.
And then it got overruled, and that, for me, adds to the drama. That's another element.
That's not dramatic for me.
Isn't it?
No, because I feel sorry for those Man City players on the pitch.
Oh, I feel sorry for them, but it's dramatic.
That's not dramatic, because that's an error. That someone's done that, and it's cost them huge. But
it's the same as the Lampard thing. It's just that rather than technology correcting it, technology's failed to correct it.
Well, that's because it just left it alone. And that's the thing. That's the thing for me. It's about leaving it alone, because the thing that makes you've brought this Lampard thing up because of a mistake, because of jeopardy. Now, sometimes that kind of mistake galvanises a team, and you see something different from them because they feel marginalised, because they feel like they've been cheated. I like that in football. That's a huge part of the game. And you're talking about cutting all that out just because you want perfection.
I don't want perfection.
Yes, you do.
What I want is a time machine. I want to go back to 2010 and I want to have a word with that referee.
They still got beat.
Last time I was in the UK, I met national treasure Mary Berry's grandmother, Elderberry.
Love sport.
Hi, I'm Dean. I work for a successful shipping company in Suffolk. Ever since I heard about people's success with the spokesmansaid.com, I knew I had to investigate for myself. Every time I need to compare car insurance, home insurance and energy bills, I always contact a spokesmansaid.com. This year alone, I saved over £260 on my car insurance and also £585 on my energy bills. I saved big through a spokesmansaid.com, and you could too.
With a spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do, the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So, I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life Food Scanner app today.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you'd do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
This is Love Sport.
Our top story today is the sad news about Sir Dave Brailsford's prostate cancer. We're of course all hoping, well behind him, hoping for a positive prognosis after his surgery. He's going to find out about that tomorrow. But this seems, on the face of it, to be a bizarre scenario. You've got this supremely fit man surrounded by elite athletes. Everything in his life is perfect in terms of his fitness, and even he gets ill. We know that 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer in their lifetime, and it seems very, very important that we're all getting checked out. We're fortunate to be joined on the line by Laura James, who is Head of Clinical Services at Prostate Cancer UK. Good afternoon, Laura. Thank you for joining us. For people listening to this, men of all ages, how important is it that they go and get tested?
Hi Johnny, thank you so much for having me on. If it's okay, I'd just like to take the opportunity first of all, as you mentioned, to wish Sir David all the best with his recovery from his surgery. I think it's really important to say, sort of first off, that there is no one test to diagnose prostate cancer. So there's currently no screening program as there is for other cancers. But what we do have is something called the PSA blood test. And PSA stands for prostate-specific antigen. And if that test is raised, that may indicate a prostate problem, but not necessarily prostate cancer. Now, all men over the age of 50 are entitled to ask their GP for that test, but what it's important to realise is that the test isn't 100% accurate. So it's really important to talk through the pros and cons of having that test done with either your doctor or your GP before you decide to go down that route. But absolutely, all men, if they are concerned about prostate cancer, can ask their GP if they're over the age of 50 for a blood test, and that's the sort of starting point, the first step.
Laura, is that over 50 age in place because before that you're much less likely to develop cancer of this kind?
Well, it's interesting because with early prostate cancer, you see, men often won't have symptoms. So what we look at is their risk factors. And you were talking about, being a relatively young, fit man. And actually, when men contact us, the specialist nurses at Prostate Cancer UK, it's very common for them to say to us when they've been diagnosed, I felt fine, I felt so fit, so healthy, nothing was wrong. And that's because with early prostate cancer, men often don't have symptoms. So what we need to look at is risk factors. What may increase that man's risk of getting prostate cancer? And risk of prostate cancer does increase with age. So actually the most common age to be diagnosed is between 65 and 69, but because prostate cancer is the most common cancer in men, we are hearing about more men being diagnosed in their 50s. So it's so important that men of all fitness levels, all health statuses know, and are aware of what their risks of prostate cancer might be. And as I mentioned, it's more common in men over the age of 50 as they get older. Also men who have a family history of prostate cancer, so if they have a father or brother diagnosed with the disease. And also black men have an increased risk of prostate cancer. And you mentioned that 1 in 8 men will get prostate cancer. That's actually 1 in 4 for black men. So really important that they're aware of their risk as well.
It's funny, that was the question I was going to ask you. Being a black man, I'd heard that black men were more susceptible to it. How often should someone like me, I'm a 51-year-old black guy, how often should I be tested?
I think it's a really good question, and I think you mentioned sort of, you're over the age of 50 now, you're black, so there is the potential that you are at that increased risk of prostate cancer. So I would say if you haven't already started having conversations with your GP, it would probably be a good idea to make an appointment with your GP and have a conversation about your risk of prostate cancer. We say that for sort of men with a family history and black men, they may want to start having those conversations from their mid-40s onwards. So if you haven't already, it would probably be a good idea to make an appointment with your GP and talk through the PSA test and understand the benefits and the limitations to it. The other thing perhaps to say is, if you know, as I mentioned, with early prostate cancer, men often won't have symptoms, but if men do notice a change to their urinary habits, so for example, they were having difficulty stopping their flow of urine or starting their flow of urine, the stream was weaker, they felt that they hadn't fully emptied their bladder, they were having more frequency and urgency to pass urine, they were perhaps noticing a tendency to dribble, they would all be important things to mention to the GP. It's about noticing what's not normal for you, and the likelihood is that those symptoms are not to do with prostate cancer and maybe to do with something that's not cancerous. An enlarged prostate is very common in men over the age of 50 and can cause those urinary symptoms, but any changes to what's normal for you, it's always good to get that checked out.
Laura, you were talking a moment ago about those risk factors.
Yeah.
Now, beyond age and ethnicity, which we've touched on, what kind of things would a GP be looking for?
Those are the three main ones, really: age, ethnicity and family history. Those are the main three. There is some thought around if men are overweight or obese, they are potentially at risk of getting a more advanced or a more aggressive prostate cancer, but we still need to understand more about that. So those three main risk factors are the age, the ethnicity and the family history.
Laura, how do we get men to take it seriously? Because I was reading about Sir David Brailsford and kind of ignored the signs.
Yeah,
you know, because we're frightened initially. How do we? What can we all do to convince and encourage men to take it seriously?
Absolutely. And I think the things to keep in our mind are that it's the most common cancer in men, and I think that's why it's so important that men like Sir David and other sort of men in the media and high-profile men and just men in general share their experiences and talk about the situations that they've been in, because you're right, I'm not a man, but I perhaps can say from a professional point of view that I know men are generally not always good about talking about their health. I think they're getting much better, definitely, and as I mentioned, I think when figures in the media and more high-profile men talk about their situations, that does help men. But I think prostate cancer is on track to be the most common cancer diagnosed overall by 2030, and I think that's the thing that we need to think about. This is going to become the most common cancer diagnosed through the UK in the next 11-12 years, so that's why it's so important that we all have these conversations and we're not embarrassed, and if we do notice a change to our urinary habits, because I guarantee that if men start a conversation with another men, at some point they will find a common ground where they know somebody who's been affected or who's noticed some changes to their urinary habits or has been concerned about a prostate problem, and that keeps the conversation going, and that's the most important thing, that we talk and share experiences.
Sir David is obviously a very unusual man, a very impressive guy. We know that he's already back on an exercise bike, which to me is absolutely staggering, given I don't get on one anyway. But you mentioned that particularly for younger guys diagnosed with this condition, they might not have symptoms. Does it affect your quality of life? Does it affect what you can do? Is it normal? Is it a good thing to, after treatment for prostate cancer, actually get back there, start working out and getting back to work as he has?
I think it's one of those things where every kind of case has to be judged on an individual basis. I think, surgery for prostate cancer is major surgery. Whichever way you have that surgery done, it's a major operation, and there is a significant period of recovery that comes with that, and potentially you would be looking at around sort of 6 to 8 weeks. Then you would see your consultant and perhaps have those conversations around things like, what can I do in terms of exercise? What about going back to work? So you'd certainly be wanting to allow yourself at least a month to 2 months period of recovery. But I think the fitter you are, the healthier you are before you undergo any kind of treatment, the better that stands you instead for recovery afterwards. The two main side effects that men will experience after having their prostate removed removed are continence problems and erectile dysfunction. So those are the two main side effects that they will get. So it's really important that men, before they have their surgery, have their conversations with their specialist nurses at the hospital or their urologist consultant at the hospital and talk about what they might be experiencing after they've had their prostate removed, and they know what the side effects are to expect and how to manage those, and then they should be able to work through those.
Laura, lovely to speak to you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Very much. No problem at all.
Our pleasure as well. Laura James there, who is Head of Clinical Services at Prostate Cancer UK. Hopefully some good news to come for Sir David Brailsford. Some good news for the England cricket team, it has to be said, which is Wokes has got Steve Smith, and for once, shockingly, he's not got 100. He was walking off, bowled on 80. He looked absolutely furious.
That's a great ball, LBW. See it again. He's just tried to nick it and
plumb.
And
that's what
you
we
know
call
what?
that.
He's got that shot right so many times where if he doesn't clip it, he's LBW. He's done that hundreds of times and managed to nick the ball, but this time it's... that you could see the stunned silence. There was shock amongst the England. What do we do now? How do we celebrate? We got him out. Wow.
Well, it sort of shows the fine margins of his brilliance, because that shot right off the pads, sort of flicked off the pads, is not only difficult, it's one that most of these guys don't really try in the way that he does. He barely moves his feet. Totally unusual, yet totally sublime. And Kieran, you'd have to say now, Australia, 187 for 8. England looking rather tidy.
Well, I'm worried about my day 4 tickets, to be honest. The way Australia are batting, and England haven't been too great either with the bat in hand.
It's about your country.
Sorry.
Your Sunday.
Sorry. Yeah, no, we're looking great, and I think this bowling attack is kind of a lot more balanced with Curran in the side. It does feel like we have different options, and when Steve Smith, because of his movement across the stumps, he's just had to face spells of bowling from Curran and Archer, who have taken all 7 wickets before his dismissal. He's had to face the left arm swing, which is a different angle. You have to line it up slightly differently. And Archer's been pushing him back in the crease with a lot of short balls. It's all about bowling in partnerships. We can look at cricket deliveries in isolation a lot of the time, and we can look at the fine details of a dismissal, for example. But what we don't look at enough, in my opinion, is the setup around it. And actually, England have bowled really well in a group there. Archer's been getting Smith just a bit jumpy on the crease. Curran's been targeting the stumps, and that's what you need to do against Steve Smith. I feel like he is vulnerable sometimes to a ball that hits the stumps. At the end of the day, if you're bowling a ball that hits the stumps, you're bringing in all modes of dismissal, and that's what you have to do to get such a brilliant player out. So, no, great to see that.
Modes of dismissal sounds like an action film starring Tom Cruise. Modes of dismissal.
Do you know what? Yeah, it's this modes of dismissal thing. It's taken us a good few tests to get it right. That's the worry for me.
Well, we're getting it right now, and from where we are, obviously the best we can hope for is a draw. Yeah. Australia, of course, retain the Ashes. If you'd been offered that going into this series, would you have taken it?
What, us drawing Australia retain the Ashes? No.
No chance.
Because we should have been looking to win it.
Yeah, 100%.
What are our chances of going and taking them back in Australia? Because we know how hard it is to win a series down under.
Well, look, you're talking about a long time away. We can't go from test to test with the same, batting lineup. So I have no clue. There's so many things.
Could be you and me.
That's what I'm saying. We got a chance by then. If I can sort me back out, because we chop and change so often. We don't seem to have faith in. I think Jason Roy should have played the whole series. Give him the whole series, so you've at least given him a series opportunity. That's what you've got to do. There's no point getting rid of him now because you're bringing someone in for one test. That's ridiculous.
It's not enough.
This is Love Sport.
Have you had enough of extortionate energy bills? A spokesman said could help you find the cheapest energy deals on the market. Don't take our word for it. There's hundreds of spokesman said customers who've saved big. Brian from Derbyshire saved £400 on his energy bills, and Tony from Northampton saved a massive £2,800 on his gas and electric. A spokesmansaid.com, the leading price comparison site where you can switch to the cheapest energy tariffs on the market in just minutes.
thespokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Mr. Davis, to start your car insurance policy, you'll have to pay upfront £850 for the year in one single payment. How does that sound?
£850?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
In one go?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
Today?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
In one single payment?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
What?
With new Aviva Plus, we won't ask you to pay everything up front. Everyone pays monthly at no extra cost. New Aviva Plus, car insurance the way it should be. Excludes Northern Ireland.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app, because there's only one you.
I am what would happen if the comments section became human and ran for president.
Love sport.
Paul Mortimer.
Yes.
It's a great name. It's got gravitas to it. It's got shape to it. Paul, simple, straight to the point, but there's an elegance there. There's a confidence. Mortimer, it sounds historical. It sounds like there's a weight there. Paul Mortimer. If he was a character in Dickens, you go Paul Mortimer. I can trust Paul Mortimer.
There's something going on here, mate.
But Paul is a relatively normal name. You know, if you're called Paul, similarly to Johnny, it's unlikely, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's unlikely that there's some outrageous inspiration for that name. Do you know why your parents decided to call you Paul?
Absolutely not.
We're joined in the studio by producer Kieran. Again, a relatively straight down the middle name. We don't mess around here on Love Sport Radio. Why are you called Kieran?
I think they liked it. It was one of the... they heard it, they liked it, they picked it.
Well, the reason why I've been grilling you, gentlemen, is with the news today published in the Daily Mirror that more than 1 million people in the UK are named after a Disney character.
What?
Does that surprise you? Does that shock you?
It doesn't surprise me at all. The way people call whatever names people use these days doesn't surprise me at all.
So are you a traditionalist when it comes to names, Paul?
No. My oldest is called Latanya. Holly, Courtney and Michael.
Pretty standard. I like the name Latanya. I've never met someone called Latanya.
And Courtney's a girl.
I would have thought Courtney would be a girl.
No, there's Courtneys that are boys.
They're at Courtney House, of course.
Yeah, I've met a river in my lifetime. I've met Rains.
I've met Rains?
Rain.
You've met someone called Rain?
I'm not here for
that.
I've met Ocean.
There you go. What was Ocean like?
Lovely, she played for my team.
Did she wave a lot? Hero weight, lads.
Oh my God.
I'm going to run you down the names that they've gone for from Disney. Most of them pretty standard, but some of them a little odder. So number 1 is Jasmine, which is actually my girlfriend's name.
Well, I was going to say,
which one's Jasmine? Where's that from?
Jasmine is the princess in Aladdin. A whole new world. That's Jasmine.
Alright, carry on.
Paul Mortimer looking blank.
I don't know if I've seen Aladdin. Carry on,
mate,
anyway.
you're missing out.
Am I?
Yeah, next.
Sleep. Carry on anyway.
Next one is Rex from Toy Story, who is the T-Rex. Imagine looking at a talking dinosaur and going, I bet you like Rex.
Yeah, I do. I like it's Toy Story, man. What can you hate from Toy Story?
But Rex is... Rex meaning king. Name. It's a bad thing to call your kid, surely.
Rex?
King. Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't call my boy Rex.
All right. Next up, Belle from Beauty and the Beast. That's not for me, I'll be honest.
Belle.
I like Belle.
Okay.
I like Belle. It's beauty, isn't it? It means beauty, right? So that is very nice, I think.
It's a nice name.
Okay, that's getting the seal of
It's
approval.
all right.
Jessie, which is from Toy Story 2, which is
I
standard,
remember.
completely fine.
Yeah, my cousin's called Jessie.
Minnie, I'm not going for Minnie.
Not having that. Because that has associations. Minnie, the only Minnie I've ever heard of is Minnie Mouse.
Yeah,
so
game over.
That's not good.
Good friend of mine's dog's called Minnie.
Yeah, it is. It's more of a dog's name, isn't it? Really? Minnie.
If there are any Minnies listening, I'm very sorry. Tiana from Princess and the Frog, which I think is a nice name.
Yeah, I never watched that film.
Elsa, nice name. Woody, no. Again, I'd call a dog Woody. Would I call a person Woody?
I like Woody.
More.
Yeah,
Let's come on. Ariel.
Okay, that's interesting.
That's more on the ocean theme, isn't it?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And Nala, I like the name Nala.
Oh, yeah, it sounds okay.
I can get on board with that.
Who's that from?
That is from the
Come on,
hang on.
This is it.
Well, this is the thing. So we came at this thinking we discovered the news story. The news story was that people are naming their kids after Disney characters.
Yeah.
But in discussing it, we've discovered the real scoop, which is Paul Mortimer hasn't watched Disney.
No. I'm virtually sure. See, my kids will tell you that I've watched them, but no, I've just been there.
You've been present.
I've just been there. I haven't. I don't think I've really watched them. They've been there. Did you watch The Simpsons? Okay, there's an episode where Homer Simpson is a juror. And he's asleep behind these glasses with the eyes open. Have you seen that? Yeah, I think that's what I was doing. That's what I was
missing
doing.
out, Morse.
I'm watching it, but really, I'm fast asleep.
Oh well, Toy Story, man.
Oh no.
He's seen
Toy Story slightly
All
different.
right, good.
Toy Story slightly different. Come on, that's a proper film.
It's weird because I'm not. You get people who are proper Disney fanaticists where they've watched Bambi 800 times.
Yeah.
I've seen most of them once. I'm not a particularly big fan, and I haven't seen them in the last 10 years. But the idea that you wouldn't know who Jasmine was in Disney.
I'll be honest.
Morts.
I would tackle like a Disney marathon. I think I could really go in for it.
Really?
To be honest, yeah. I'm sure there's like a karaoke theme. You could buy the karaoke versions of Aladdin.
See, the thing about all of those after Toy Story, nothing was as good.
No,
I can't watch all the others. They're just not as good as the Toy Story.
I have that problem with midfield players, having watched Paul Mortimer play. I think this De Bruyne, yeah, he's all right, but it's not.
He can't celebrate like it.
It's not
all in the celebration.
It is.
Well, I tell you what, another character in Toy Story, Sid. That's not on your list, is it?
No. Sid, a bad name and a terrible character.
Yeah, and there was a tweet from someone watching the cricket. And apparently Sid from Toy Story looks a little bit like Peter Siddle, the Australian fast bowler.
That is properly means.
Which I quite like. I mean, I'll show you the photo, but I mean, it's cracking. And it's just the Siddle connection as well. That's who he's grown up to be, an angry Australian fast bowler.
Works nicely. I'm going to move you on, gents, to a moral quandary. So what's happened is a woman has gone to a family reunion, and her cousin has had a newborn baby, right? And this woman who's turned up, not her baby, it's her cousin's baby, she's turned up, she's wearing a nice blouse, and we discover that this blouse is worth 2,000 English pounds.
Right.
I didn't even know that. I knew you could get expensive clothes, but 2,000 quid for a shirt. Come on.
Buy a car for that.
She meets this baby. It was supposedly a baby ceremony to kind of meet the baby.
Right.
And so she, meeting a new baby for the first time, goes, "Can I hold it?"
Oh, no.
She holds the baby, gives it a hug. It's there on the shoulder. She pats its back. Morts has called it vomit everywhere. 2,000 grand's worth of blouse covered in baby sick. Now, you've got options in this scenario, right?
I'll dry clean it for you.
Exactly. I hope. That for the 2 grand it's machine washable, and if not,
I'll dry clean it.
You can dry clean it. The woman in question turned to her cousin and demanded that she buy her a new £2,000 blouse. This is a woman who's just had a baby, dealing with all of the financial constraints that go with that, and she's gone, "Your baby's been sick on me. That'll be 2 grand, please." What we say?
Well, I'd just say to her, "Tell you what I'd do first. Let me dry clean it. And we'll see how it goes."
So if you dry clean it, though, let's assume she sulkily goes, "All right, it won't work." You take it off to the dry cleaner. You pay your £6 or whatever it would be for one $2,000 blouse, and you pray that it'll come back perfectly, and it comes back and it's basically clean, but there's a little bit you can sort of tell, and she goes, no, not good enough, I want a new
did I get it
blouse.
wrong? I said I'm going to dry clean it because I'm never paying the $2,000.
Right, so if she comes back
Yep.
and she says, listen, that's not up to scratch, I need the $2,000, what would you do?
I'm saying, who told you in your right mind to wear this lovely blouse and hold a child?
Yeah, like,
why
but
would
also,
you do that?
Without meaning to sound like a prude, $2,000 on a blouse anyway. What's the point?
Well, I would think it's all relative. If you can afford a $2,000 blouse,
you can afford another one.
You can afford another. You're living in that world where $2,000 is like 150 quid.
And as you say, Johnny, why is she wearing a $2,000 blouse to this baby ceremony? If she knows, there's going to be some incidents along the way. If she's that protective over this item of clothing, perhaps she should have left it in the cupboard at home.
But listen, if you're going to pick a baby up, if you're going to hold on to a baby, there is a chance there's going to be some spillage. There is a definite chance
Technical term.
there's going to be some spillage somewhere. I don't know what end it's going to come out of, but there's going to be some spillage somewhere. Or if that baby's dribbling or whatever, there's going to be that. So you can't worry about your clothes.
What is the most you would spend on a shirt, though? Because I could not. I don't think I own a shirt worth more than 40 quid. I couldn't imagine spending more than 80, probably. Like $2,000.
I hate shopping. It
just
depends.
mad.
I mean, I wouldn't. I don't spend that much money on clothes. There's some good stuff out there, H&M and places like that do some good stuff. So I'll go there, and it's quite fashionable, and I'm cool with it. But if I do, yeah, of course, every now and again you
splash out, you treat yourself.
Splash out, you treat yourself when you work hard and stuff like that. You treat yourself, but I'm only going to buy that stuff if I'm actually going to wear it regularly. And if I'm not going to wear it, what? I'm going to put it in the cupboard.
And you're never going to carry a baby while you're wearing it. More to the point.
Your news, your views, your voice. Love Sport Radio, your fan station.
Hi, my name's Bob. I'm a retired civil servant from Durham. I used the advice that a spokesman said gave me to haggle with Sky to reduce my monthly payments from £86 per month to £43 per month, which was a saving of £774 over the 18-month contract. A nice little result, if I say so myself, but it was only due to a spokesman said on his brilliant advice that I was able to do a deal for the new contract.
With a spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you'd do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. Or better.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
This is Love Sport.
Our top story today is, of course, the sad news that Sir Dave Brailsford has been diagnosed with prostate cancer. We're all well behind him here at Love Sport Radio, hoping for good news tomorrow. He's going to find out his prognosis after an operation to treat the cancer, so all the best to him for that. We're joined on the line by Professor Andy Lane, who's a professor of sports psychology at the University of Wolverhampton. Good afternoon, Dr. Lane. Thanks for Professor Lane, I should say. Doctor, I'm getting ahead of myself. Thank you for joining us. In terms of the psychology of dealing with a life-threatening illness like this, how do you move on? You're someone who's fit, who's healthy, who's always around elite sportsmen, and suddenly you're told that your body isn't playing ball. How do you process that?
Well, I mean, it's a massive shock to start with, and the first part of all that is acceptance of what's happened, and that will take some time. His current thoughts would have been about what he planned to do physically and all the things that come with it, and it won't stop. But in the back of his mind now, or back in front of his mind, will be this diagnosis that's just taken place, and it's a game changer, isn't it? It's going to have to shift what happens, and I mean, that's a shock. So initially there's a big shock that comes into it before you sort of go through a process where you accept that you're going to have to come to deal with it.
Andy, one of the things around that is trusting your body as well, because it's never let you down. And in the environment he exists in, where physical pursuits, getting fit and training at that level is huge, and he'll have spoken about all of that. Now all of a sudden he doesn't know whether his body is going to be the same again after, and I suppose that makes a huge difference on him as a man, let's say.
Well, look, the start of that was that your body never lets you down, and it absolutely does all the time. In terms of endurance sport, which he's involved with, is people have to overcome extremely difficult sensations of fatigue, and whether their body lets them down or they don't push through that fatigue. There's a battle, mind-body battle. That says you could do a bit more, could do a bit less. And he'd know all about the fact that you can get a little bit more out of yourself on some days than other days. And some days you don't feel like doing very much. Everybody, I mean, that's one part to it. The other part is that everybody gets injured. And when you work with elite athletes, one of the things that you are experiencing all the time is people right on the edge of injury. And so their bodies absolutely break down in that their hamstrings go, their knees go. And at the point when they go through injuries, that means you can't do X for a while. It's devastating for people because they can be in the peak of fitness and then things can go snap. So in this is slightly different for that, but the context where people are used to you being out of action, sport's not bad for that in that sense, or in that it's quite normal for it to take place. And then the programs of rehab, I mean, they're straightforward relatively when you've got a physical injury that occurs within the sport. This is very different though, because the big shock is that, and by his own words, he just wasn't expecting it. And it's really difficult for when you've had a healthy lifestyle, you've got all the factors of good health in your favour, and this happens, and you can't explain it. Why has this happened? And it's really hard to take. That'll take some while to get his head round. I mean, it's not going to be easy, but you find lots of quite healthy people suddenly diagnosed with things like that. Healthy people who do drop down dead suddenly, and there's a small proportion of the population that are carrying illnesses. They have a history of have a family history that makes them susceptible to these type of injuries, of illnesses, and therefore you start as you look into it more, you go, well, actually, there are quite a lot of people like me, and what comes out of that is, okay, what do I have to do? I'm sure he'll get to what do I have to do quite quickly.
Well, on that, dealing with a diagnosis of prostate cancer is obviously very different to and much more serious than a hamstring strain or an ACL or whatever it may be. But is there an element where a certain psychological mindset or a certain psychological approach could help him deal with this?
With all injuries, illnesses, being very positive is generally beneficial. If and one of the reasons for that, it will give you good health if you're quite active, you get a good diet, you have a positive mood. The downside of such devastating injuries is that you become depressed and very inwardly focusing and quite negative, and and the consequences of that are you don't exercise much, you don't really take care of your diet, and your mood is quite low all the time. You don't actively try and repair it. Now, if you didn't have the diagnosis and you got into that mindset, you would be not very well very quickly. So if you were not very active and and so it's kind of acceptable to feel that you're not to be positive, feel sorry for yourself, but actually to talk yourself into trying to look forward to certain parts of the day and raise your mood, be active. That's what you talk yourself into those things is quite useful for overcoming what will be quite a negative storm coming through your mindset at the moment.
And I've got to ask, if we go back to the start, when he first found out that Sir Dave Brailsford, he ignored the signs. And for me, there's a huge psychological battle going on there in terms of, as you said before, acceptance. I mean, everyone's sort of saying, it's sad news and what have you. I actually think that the fact that it's happened is good news for him, because he could have gone another month not accepting it, another month after not accepting it, and so being able to accept first and foremost is a huge hurdle that is difficult for a lot to get over.
It's massive, and one of the there's a huge. It's massive to accept it. It's massive to go and actually seek treatment. There's big campaigns for men to go and check for prostate, for cancer, and it goes and it can go undiagnosed, and prostate cancer can be very slow growing, and people can die with it rather than die of it. That's what we need to get over it, and until you start looking at that in some detail. But so it's always a powerful message when somebody then says they were identified and they went and got treatment, for all the people around the age group who are seemingly well, and then start looking at some of their symptoms and think that it might well be a problem. Sometimes the GPs are not so keen on you booking in for tests. So I have a family that has high rates of prostate cancer, so I get myself checked out quite often, simply because my dad's had it, my uncle's had it, my grandfather died of it. So actually, once you get to over a certain age, your chances raise up. So you go and get yourself checked out. So which doesn't, the tests they do don't necessarily guarantee it, but it's kind of going, well, actually, this could start, and therefore I'm prepared that it could happen to me, because it happened to my dad and it happened to my grandfather as well.
Yeah, very, very important to get checked, and for all men of a certain age to get checked as well. And all the very best of luck to Sir Dave Brailsford for his recovery. On a different note, Professor Lane, it's Friday the 13th, and we did want to ask you about sporting superstitions. Now, we hear all kinds of crazy ones. Can they help players? Can they also hinder players?
Well, they certainly can do both. What doesn't happen is there is no such thing as lucky socks. And
I beg to differ. Andy, there's going to be millions of people ringing in now and giving you grief.
I've got my lucky socks on, actually, so I'm very confident. My family are not so keen on these lucky socks, because I try to be lucky every day in them. I have to be lucky for the last 3 months.
Yeah.
Oh, your poor family.
Have you got a lucky washing machine as well?
No, that's not lucky. That winces when they go near it. I've tried to put them in my wife's washing basket a couple of times, but they ran back. Okay. How does these help sports people or hinder them? Well, we know that if you have very powerful beliefs about something, that it can have an additive effect. So lots of the work on ergogenic aids, where people take substances, drinks, and to try and make themselves go quicker, often finds that it helps. They go quicker for a part. And people take these things and they swear blind that it really helped me perform well. Then later, the research says, well, there's no real biological reason for this to work to the same extent that what it does. Other bits of research then give people fake substances. In other words, they say it's a helpful product, but tell them that this product is really, really good and it really makes you perform better. So, in other words, give them something they really, really believe in, And lo and behold, they perform better too. Now, when they think they're taking something very good, and it will help, and they get a very powerful belief, then it seems to work. Now, if you convince yourself that wearing your lucky socks or doing a certain routine or doing something is fundamental for you to perform well, you do it a few times, so you go out and play, and you play really strongly because you in your best socks, you start thinking, I played really well because of my best socks. And it raises your belief. Now, if you, at the same time, if you've got someone with that really strong belief, and then they go to play, they look in their bag and their socks aren't there, or whatever it isn't
Oh,
there.
I see. It can hinder you because they think, I'm not wearing my socks.
I've not got my socks on.
Tell you what, I'm going to get 2 pairs. That is clearly the only solution. Professor Lane, lovely to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time. Professor Andy Lane there, who's Professor of Sports Psychology at the University of Wolverhampton. We'll be back in a moment. Mort and I are going to swap socks.
Love Sport.
Hello, I'm Tim from Bolsover. I'm a retired teacher. I was looking for a better electricity deal from my parents when I got an email from a spokesman said it was a fixed deal for 2 years, which was better for my parents, less for them to worry about. And when I had to look at the sums, I had to recheck because I couldn't quite believe it. They were going to save over £900 each year they were on that deal. Needless to say, we signed up pretty quickly.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do, the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. Or better.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Alright, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Ballingerry! Lots to come on Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. I'm sounding like a moron because Nathan Lyon has gone. Nathan Lyon, Mr. Fumble, as he's called on Posh Boys on Drive. Jofra Archer is having quite the day. 5 wickets for 61. There's economy, there's pace, there's dangerousness, there is threat. The worry now, and Paul Mortimer is terrified, is that if we bowl them all out, England could have to deal with some dodgy light for half an hour or so. Updates throughout the show.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker.
This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 6. David Cameron says he thinks about the consequences of the EU referendum every single day. He called it for 2016 when he was Prime Minister. He's told the Times newspaper he didn't take the decision lightly. Philip Blond used to be one of his advisers.
I think he genuinely felt this is something that the country needs to address. And I think that's quite a persuasive argument. In part, he caused the conditions that led to voters voting for Brexit.
Meanwhile, the current Prime Minister's been heckled during a speech in Rotherham and told to get back to Westminster. Boris Johnson was talking to a convention on devolving power to regions in the north of England. The inquests into the deaths of 22 people killed in the Manchester Arena bombings may instead become a public inquiry. A coroner's ruled that disclosing some evidence in the open would assist terrorists in carrying out similar atrocities, so this way some of what's heard could be disclosed in private. The family of a teenager who died after eating chicken at a Byron burger says restaurants need to take more responsibility over labelling. Owen Carey, who said he was allergic to dairy, suffered a reaction because it was coated in buttermilk. In sport, England's cricketers are looking to end day 2 of the final Ashes Test with a healthy lead over Australia. Live to Guy Swindles at the Oval.
And it currently stands at 69 because the Australians are 225 for 9 in their first innings. 5 wickets for the mightily impressive Jofra Archer. He's just taken the 5th bowling line for 25, and the next ball thought he'd actually finished the innings, but Hazelwood was dropped by Joe Root. Second catch he has put down in the innings.
And LGBT charity Stonewall says it's delighted Sam Smith feels able to speak openly about gender identity. Fans are being asked to refer to the singer as they or them after the star came out as non-binary earlier this year. That's the latest. I'm Tanya Snuggs.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker.
This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
They've gone. The Australians, I can't see them. Morts, they've disappeared.
Oh no! You see, I'm pleased, but I'm not, because now we got to go in and bat.
Jofra Archer is just
what a great catch,
god of a man.
Oh my God, what a great catch that was.
It's been caught by
Rory
Burns, the opener.
You've got to watch this catch.
Serious dive down to his right. Jofra Archer, 6 wickets, and I won't use the word skittled, but the Aussies have gone. Your worry now, Mr. Pessimism, is that we've got to bat for a while in some dodgy light.
We're rubbish at this, and we're rubbish in the morning sessions. So
when are we good? Afternoon. From the hours of 2 until 5, we're quite handy.
In theory.
In theory.
I don't know when there's a period that we're good. I don't know.
6 for 62, Jofra. 6 for
2.6 runs and overs. Brilliant.
What a bloke.
Everything we thought he would be.
In all my excitement, I haven't told you who you're listening to. It's Johnny Burrow, it's Paul Mortimer, and now it's time for Mystic Morts.
Mystic Morts.
Right, Morts, Mystic Morts, I should say. We're keeping it simple this week. The Premier League fixtures. The voice is coming out. Paul Mortimer, there's a haze in his eyes. He's not really in the room. He's looking into the ether, into his mystic ball. We'll start with Liverpool versus Newcastle United at Anfield. What are the spirits telling you?
Evening, Johnny. Oh dear. Liverpool 4, Newcastle 1.
Oh, it's a battering. Okay.
A beating.
Brighton versus Burnley.
Try to stay awake. Brighton 1, Burnley 1.
Sounds pretty accurate to me. Manchester United versus Leicester City.
Not good for United. Manchester United 2, Leicester 3.
It's a big call from Mystic Morts, but then again, he is magic. So, right, Sheffield United versus Southampton.
Sheffield United 2, Southampton 1.
Tottenham Hotspur versus Crystal Palace.
Tottenham Hotspur 3, Crystal Palace 1.
Not a lot of clean sheets for Mystic Morts. Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Chelsea.
Wolverhampton Wanderers 2, Chelsea 2.
Norwich City with a lot of injuries against Manchester City.
Norwich City 1, Manchester City 5.
Or 5! Mystic Morts takes no prisoners. 2 more for Mystic Morts. AFC Bournemouth versus Everton. Could be goals.
AFC Bournemouth 0. Everton 0.
He's just, the spirits are mugging me off. It's that straightforward. I don't like you. He's doing a little celebration. Watford versus Arsenal.
Watford 2, Arsenal 2.
Always a tricky one for the Gunners. Well, the smoke is lifting here in the studio. It seems to be Aston Villa West Ham, I've been told I have to do. Monday night fixture.
Aston Villa 2, West Ham 3.
High scoring stuff from Mystic Morts. Now, the smoke is starting to lift in the Love Sports studio. The smell of incense is dwindling away. Paul Mortimer, I think he's coming back to us. He looks kind of asleep. There's a haze in his eyes. I think the spirits are leaving him. The possession is over. It's like a kind of seance. I've got my candles in the corner. Paul, are you with us?
Just about.
Can you remember what happened in the last few minutes?
No.
So you can't remember mugging me off live on the radio?
Again. God, even Mystic Morse does you.
Yeah. No,
and he's not even real.
Any permutation of Paul Mortimer is more than capable of mugging me off. Well, actually, Mystic Morts and myself, we had a fairly straightforward conversation about the weekend's Premier League action. Mystic Morts, as he does, went for some predictions. Interestingly, he tipped Liverpool to stick 4 past Newcastle. Now, there are people saying that Newcastle, despite their struggles, are quite solid at the back against the big sides. They beat Spurs. Arsenal struggled to a 1-0 win. Do you really think that Liverpool are going to get that many?
Well, this is against one of the top 2. And I think they're a class apart. I think that they don't stop. They're constant. They're always going to be at Newcastle, and as well as Newcastle play, I think the thing about the top teams, the top 2, is they find a way, and they score multiple goals, and they've got all the attacking players are capable of scoring multiple goals, and I just think it's going to be too relentless, and I don't think Newcastle will have enough for the 90 minutes to keep them at bay.
I think that's an interesting one. So for you, beyond just the league table, on a game-to-game basis, Liverpool and City are on a completely different level.
I think they're on a different level. I think that keeping them at bay is the thing. It's not about, unfortunately, it's not about winning games or even drawing them. It's about keeping them at bay, because I think once they get going, they can score multiple goals very, very quickly, and it's difficult. It's very, very so. For example, Liverpool, sometimes they're slow starters. Sometimes at the start of a game, you can catch them on the hop. If you don't take your chances, you know that Liverpool are going to create a dozen chances in a game. You know that. And on any given day, they could be beating teams 4s and 5s. Salah makes and creates half a dozen chances by himself. You know, Firmino, Mane's always creating stuff. Trent, Alexander-Arnold and Robertson are creating. And they've got it coming from all over the pitch, and just think it's too much to ask. I think it's too difficult for Newcastle to keep them at bay, as well as Newcastle have done so far.
Trent has created 14 chances from open play in the league so far this season, from fullback nominally. Well, I think wing-back, if not winger, to be fair at this point.
That's just one player.
That is just one player. The other one of that top 2, Man City, again, Mystic Morts was backing for 5 goals, getting close to a cricket score against Norwich, who would find it tough if they had their full-strength team, but as producer Kieran can tell us, quite a few people on the treatment table.
Well, I love Norwich City's Twitter feed this afternoon. I was looking at most of the Premier League clubs' Twitter feeds as the press conferences came in, a bumper press conference afternoon, and it started with, the boss is now about to address the local and national media. Updates here, okay? There can't be too many. Tim Closer, 9 months. Zimmerman out until January. Ligaments are okay, but a complicated injury. Grant Hanley not available. Could play 20 or 30 minutes, perhaps. Tom Tribal out. Damaged his ligaments against West Ham. Patrick Roberts ineligible. Morris Leitner out with his calf. He hasn't trained for 2 weeks. Mario Vrancic is not available for tomorrow. He's got a calf strain. Max Aarons is also out. He could be back after the next international break. Ben Godfrey came back with a groin strain from international break. There's a major doubt for tomorrow. Tim Krul, minor doubt. He may have to name 3 goalkeepers in the squad. I mean,
one of them at left back,
presumably. Is this called Man City-itis? Is it?
Oh, what? No, you reckon no one fancies?
No. I can't see that. You want to play against the big teams. This is where I worry for Norwich, because they play such an open, expansive type of football, and they haven't changed. I just think that they're going to need to change the way they play tomorrow. I really do, because if Man City score, they can't be open. They can't be.
It's interesting you say that, because I had arguments with quite a lot of people after Norwich did so well against the likes of Newcastle, with people saying if Norwich hadn't frankly set up to get battered against Liverpool, they wouldn't have then be able to come out and play the kind of expansive game they did against Newcastle, because they'd be flitting from one thing to another. People are arguing that because Daniel Farke is so set in his philosophy, they're able to do it so effectively. I think that's nonsense. I think a top side should be able to shut up shop 1 week because it's the champions, and then go away to Bournemouth or whoever next week and get at them. Surely.
In-game management, it's called. in the game, you have to be able to manage things differently. So, for example, if they go down to 10 players, will he play the same way? You can't, because they haven't got the full complement of players, so you have to adjust. And it's about making adjustments as time goes on. I mean, if, for example, I don't know, if Raheem Sterling plays on the left and is really murdering the right back, okay, now you're going to have to go and help him, which means you're going to have to change something. Or do you leave do you hang the right back out to dry? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have to, in game, you have to. If Man City's midfield is outnumbering Norwich's midfield, and that's where they're getting in and causing problems, you have to change it. You can't continue playing because you know you're going to get battered. So they're playing against the best team in Europe. I think the best equipped team in Europe. Unfortunately, you sometimes have to change the way you play. Your stubbornness is a blessing, but it's also a curse, because you're playing with lesser players against a magnificent side, and for want of better words, you're going toe-to-toe with them. It can only end one way. Well, it can only end one way.
Question from the control room, Morts. Who do you think is the best coach in the Premier League currently, or best manager in the Premier League currently, that is able to adapt his team? Because as you've seen from a lot of the top sides, Man City have a style of play they will stick to. Liverpool do. Spurs do. They're all in the top three. Who's the best at actually adapting their team for the opposition?
Well, they've got the best managers because they've got the best players. To be truthfully honest, Man City can adapt how they want. They can play half a dozen different ways because they've got the best players. So whichever way they play, man for man, they're still going to have the best players. So it won't make a difference. But below that, you're looking at some of the other sides who have to cut their cloth accordingly. They're going to find it a little bit more difficult. So if Bournemouth go to Man City, they play expansive football, but they're going to have to change. You look at I watched Sheffield United play Chelsea a couple of weeks ago, and Chelsea went 2-0 up, and Frank Lampard said after, we were comfortable. No, you weren't. No, you weren't. They were still in the game. I'm commentating on the game. I'm saying they're 2-0 down, but they're still in the game because they frightened the hell out of them. They scored with the very first kick of the second half and then battered Chelsea for the next 25 minutes, scoring in the 90th minute. But what they did was they managed the way they played. They were expansive, but they still gave the opponents respect when they needed to.
Talk me through these underlapping centre-backs, which Wilder goes for, because it is amazing.
Yeah, it's brilliant to watch.
I also love that it's happening at Sheffield United, because that's the kind of tactic that we're used to, a fashionable-sounding manager managing in Spain, delivering, and us all going, oh, how can we simple English ever understand that kind of tactical brilliance? He's a bloke from Sheffield, and he's doing absolute bits.
Yeah, but if he was foreign, people would be lauding it. They actually would. No two ways about it. Even if it was a foreigner who came up with Sheffield United and played that way.
If he was called Wildinho.
Exactly, they'd be. Now, he's done a magnificent job, and I love the way they play, because what he recognises also is, we'll do that, but it isn't everyone just flying forward.
No, they're very solid.
No, they're very solid at the back, and they use what they've got, and the system they've got suits the players that they've got. They're not asking them to do things they're not equipped to do. And what it does is it catches teams on the hop because they really don't know when it's going to happen.
What's the centre-back doing there?
Exactly. He's going into positions where, he's not expected to. A midfielder, I'm defending against them. The centre-half makes a run. Now, should I run back with him? No, my guy's here. So it's just that doubt that it creates. It works beautifully for him, and I thought they were magnificent against Chelsea and should have beat them.
Well, could there be some fantasy football assets in that Sheffield United lineup? Coming up, we're going to be talking to our resident expert to find out who needs to be in your team for game week 5.
This is Love Sport.
Mr. Davis, to start your car insurance policy, you'll have to pay upfront £850 for the year in one single payment. How does that sound?
£850?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
In one go?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
Today?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
In one single payment?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
What?
With new Aviva Plus, we won't ask you to pay everything up front. Everyone pays monthly at no extra cost. New Aviva Plus, car insurance the way it should be. Excludes Northern Ireland.
Stop paying too much for your energy bills. Brian saved money on his at spokesmansaid.com. Can you?
I'm Brian from Swaddling Coat, South Derbyshire,
and I saved about £400 on my energy bill with a Spokesman Said. The iSpokesman Said website was very easy to use, and the money I saved I put towards a holiday.
Compare home energy quotes from the UK's biggest suppliers in just a matter of minutes with a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you. And making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support, from how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search One You.
I have my own radio station too. It's called Love Trump Radio, the only station 100% fair and 112% factual.
This is Love Sport.
It's the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. Johnny Burrow and Paul Mortimer, who is nodding in a sort of...
I love sounding posh, mate.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you.
I think you could be posh, Morts.
Yeah, no doubt.
You've got the eloquence for it.
I have, governor.
We are very fortunate to be joined on the line by Tom Cantle from the fantasy football podcast Who Got the Assist. There are resident fantasy football experts. Evening, Tom. Thanks for joining us as ever. How are things looking for this game week? Morts, who joins me in the studio, Paul Mortimer, is tipping both Liverpool and City for a lot of goals. How important is it to have attackers from those teams in our lineups?
You're right, boys. Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of people do expect, certainly City, to absolutely demolish Norwich. They've got a spate of injuries, Norwich. I think they're down to like their third choice centre-back and their fourth choice centre-back. I think one of them's a defensive midfielder. Couple that of Man City, got double the expected goals of any other team. Like, we're on for a demolition there. And I think the likes of Raheem Sterling, Kevin De Bruyne and Sergio Aguero are going to be really highly fancied this week.
And in terms of Liverpool, some people, like Paul, are saying they're going to go out and score 4 or 5. Others are looking at the experiences that Arsenal and Newcastle had and Spurs had playing against Newcastle and worrying that actually Salah and Mane and that lot won't get all that many points.
Well, that's it. Like, if Newcastle sit deep, if they do what they did to Spurs, like, Mane and Salah work on the principle that they've got the space to exploit. They can run in behind the defender moved by Bobby Firmino. And if they can't get that against a team which is sitting deep like Newcastle, you may find, I think Salah's good at home. Like I still back him for a return. Like, I've got him in my team, but I just worry about there being an explosive element compared to a Sterling or a Kun Aguero. So. Yeah, that would be what I think about them. Hold them, but I wouldn't say captain them this week. I just can't see past that Norwich City game.
I'll look at Liverpool and because the teams sit deep, it's going to be about getting the ball wide and getting crosses in. And I think for runners running into the box, because if Newcastle drop deep, then their players have got the back to their goal. Getting up and heading the ball is going to be difficult. So it's about getting the ball wide and getting crosses in. And, they've got 2 of the best exponents of that in Europe. Don't worry about the Premier League. So I think what I like about them is I think they can score in many different ways from many different people. And I think if they can score early, the whole outlook on how Newcastle defend changes a little.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Tom, I've got to talk about our league. Morts, we've got a weekly league, which is myself, Guy, who's our normal producer, and the 2 lads from Who Got the Assist. Now, I have to confess, live on air, that I'm currently propping up the table. It's me on 229 points. Then Tom is just ahead of me, 233, so I could potentially leapfrog him this week, or as I suspect is more likely, he could pull away. Then Nick Harris, the other expert, is second with 242. Then our unbearably smug and knowledgeable producer Guy Watts
Not a
is
surprise.
miles out on top.
Not a
with
surprise. I bet he's not
276.
smiling either. He's still got that stern face. I will crush you face, hasn't he?
Completely deadpan.
Yeah.
I will crush you. I'm not going to enjoy it. It's just part of the job. Nick, are you expecting you to... Tom, I do apologise. Are you expecting you and Nick to pull away? Because you're guys who consistently finish in the top few thousand in the world.
They're
for
pros.
this.
They're pros.
We're just blokes.
Well-
You are going to thrash us, surely.
Well, I hope so. I expect that basically what happens at the start of the season, you get everyone's so involved into it and engaged, and life gets in the way, and a lot of the time, you have a few bad games which just is interesting to your team, whereas someone like you, Johnny, particularly, I don't know, Paul, how much you played or have played in the past.
Well, I didn't
yourself
play a lot
stick to
till
it, right?
last year until I was doing all right
What's
at
this,
Christmas.
fantasy football?
Yeah.
I've never played it.
Well, the thing for me, Paul, is I always start at the beginning of the season, and normally
Full of
after
optimism.
Exactly, full of. I know my football. 6 weeks in, dead and buried, stone dead at the table. I'm done. Last year, I persevered, and a late comeback meant I won the mini league I was in.
Right.
So this year, even if Tom is 300 points ahead of me with 2 weeks
still
to
gotta
go,
keep going.
I'm going to be plugging away. Not least because...
fair play to you.
But also, if I go off the boil, I then have to read it out live on the radio, which is an incentive. Tom, just as a final question for you.
Yeah,
you mentioned it there already. The big question every week is going to be, who are you captaining? Normally, it's going to be a toss-up between Sterling and Salah. You're going Sterling, aren't you? Or maybe De Bruyne?
No, I'm going to go with Sterling. I just think that there's a lot of really good research done recently which has shown that he's not really likely to be rotated after international break. So I think, and given that, I think they've got Shakhtar Donetsk, Man City in midweek. So hopefully that'll be a game that Raheem will be able to sit out on, and he'll be able to do, Bernardo and Mahrez in that game. So yeah, I think Sterling's going to play, and he's got the highest XG of any player right now. So I think that he's just a shoe-in for me. It hasn't really left him since the start of the week, really.
You see, Morts, Tom and Nick, they run the numbers. That's why
They
I
do, don't they? They're pros.
I can't do the maths. Tom, great to chat to you as ever. Really appreciate your time.
Cheers, man.
Cheers, mate. Have a nice weekend. Tom Cantle there of the Fantasy Football Podcast, who got the assist, looking to demolish me for yet another week on the Fantasy Football. Very, very frustrating. Morts, have you never been tempted?
Yeah. I joined,
Right.
picked a team for the first week, and then just didn't do it. It just doesn't interest. It just never interests me.
You got it wrong for the first week. You did badly.
No, I did all right, actually. No, I actually did all right, and I thought that would drive me along. In fact, I went into it knowing that I wasn't having it, but I got strong-armed into it. All right, fine, I'll give it a bash, and then I just didn't talk to them anymore.
Well, the thing I like most about it is it gets me really invested in games I might not care about.
Yeah.
So if there's for example, Brighton-Burnley, if I had Ashley Barnes up front, for example, suddenly I care about the result of that game, and I'm watching it rather than just going, I'm enjoying this as a game of football. You get that element of being a supporter for all of the matches, which I think is good. One thing I don't think is good is getting humiliated live on the radio, and Kieran Wellington, I believe, has a quiz for us.
Oh, really? Oh.
Well, before the quiz, I just wanted to touch on, this is kind of on a similar theme, right? So it's something I want to get Morts' opinion on. But we talk about fantasy, and it kind of makes football something for the fan, and it really kind of connects the fan, as Johnny says, with games they wouldn't be invested in. Now, Wes Morgan, the new FIFA 20 game is coming out very soon, and there's been a lot of talk on Twitter this week because Wes Morgan's stats came out, and he's rated an overall of 75, which is the bottom of the gold tier, so not too bad. But the pace statistics he's got out of 99 is 29 out of 99.
That's probably about right, isn't it? I mean, someone's got to be slow.
He is 35, though.
Exactly.
You know,
I'm
he's
not having
not
a
a spring chicken.
James Maddison has tweeted 6 laughing crying emojis with 29 pace is a disrespect skipper. Right.
He's funny, James Maddison. He's properly funny. He mugged off Jeremy Clarkson.
Oh, really?
Because Jeremy Clarkson, after the Chelsea game, Clarkson is nominally a Chelsea fan.
Yeah.
And James Maddison arguably should have won that game for Leicester. And Clarkson tweeted words to the effect of, I don't see the point of James Maddison. Spends too much time at the barber, not enough time on the training pitch. And Maddison quote retweeted him with, let me worry about my hair, at least I've still got some, #thinning. You've only got 3 haircuts left, or words to that effect. And I did think, actually, fair play, because how often do you see a footballer properly bite back? Not that often.
Well, no, it's got to give it to him.
Yeah,
don't disrespect me. Listen, you step up to that. Yeah, footballers' banter sometimes can be the sharpest. Honestly, it is what you have to consider with footballers is sometimes the banter can be about you turn up and your socks aren't right.
Well, then not your lucky socks.
And they will terrorise you over your socks. Anything, and it's the slightest thing they'll see.
Hang on, I had
they'll
walked
terrorise
through the door for 5 seconds today before you were at me. What are those legs, you said, straight away? That reminds me, I'm having chicken for dinner. Undercooked chicken was your words. So clearly
But that's what I'm talking about. That's what they do.
No mercy.
When you go past a footballer, they're looking up and down you just to see what you got. And then they will now think of something, or they look at each other and go, look at his legs.
It was quick. I'll give you that. It was quick.
Look at his legs.
You know,
they're like chickens.
The fact that I'm going to go home and cry into a pillow is neither here nor there. Kieran, can we do the quiz?
Yeah, we can do the quiz. Brendan Rodgers was actually asked about it in his press conference, and he said it's slightly harsh on Wes. He's certainly quicker than 29.
35.
Yeah, exactly. I think he means 32. Yeah. But I want to do a quiz based on the Premier League Player of the Month. Now, it's ever since the creation of the Premier League, every single month there has been a player awarded the Player of the Month. Now, Teemu Pukki has won it for August 2019. It's the first ever Norwich City footballer to win the Premier League Player of the Month.
Really?
Yeah.
Did Dean Ashton never do it, or someone like that back in the day?
No, I was thinking Darren Huckabee might have done it.
He must have stood a chance, Huckabee. Definitely.
But no, bizarrely, no. Teemu Pukki became the first Norwich City player to win Player of the Month. Now, there are a few nations with just one winner.
Okay.
So, we're going to start with Turkey. Who is the only Turkish winner of Player of the Month?
Is that for either of us?
Well, yes. I mean, take to the floor. Two guys incorrect.
Is it Tunçay Sanli for Middlesbrough?
Not Tunçay Sanli. I'll give you a year.
Is it Emre for Newcastle?
It's not. 1999, this was.
Hakan Şükür?
No. Midfielder.
I don't know many Turkish midfielders.
Ooh.
99.
Yeah. And plays for the same club as we have just been talking about, Leicester City.
Plays for Leicester City. Turkish
midfielder.
Oh, I do know. Yeah, he's English Turkish, isn't he?
He is. Yeah.
Oh, Muzzy, is it?
Yeah.
There you go, Morts. There we are.
Morts 1-0 up.
Morts 1-0 up. Okay. Next country we've got is Serbia.
Okay.
Who do you reckon might have won Player of the Month from Serbia?
Branislav Ivanovic.
Ivanovic is incorrect. Right position though. In terms of defender.
It's Nemanja Vidic.
It is Nemanja Vidic.
1-0, bang.
Very good. January 2009, Vidic, that was his only Player of the Month accolade. Let's go to South America. Paraguay.
Easy, Rocky Santa Cruz.
Oh, bang. Straight in.
I'm not even listening. Go on. Sorry, go on.
December 07 for Roque Santa Cruz.
Wouldn't have got it.
I used to love watching it. It was him in the middle, Bentley on the right, Pedersen on the left, swinging crosses in.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, I've just never paid that much attention. But carry on anyway. Go on.
So the only Jamaican winner of Premier League Player of the Month. That's slightly more difficult, I think.
I think I know who it is.
Robbie Earl, Jason Newell.
Robbie Earl is bang on.
Really? I'd have gone Ricardo Fuller.
Yeah, there you go. Well, it's February 97 for Wimbledon. Robbie Earl spot on, Morts. Very good. So it's nice from different eras here, and they're kind of combining very well. Now, this one is slightly more controversial. Only one winner comes from the Ivory Coast, but who is that player?
Didier Drogba.
No.
Ooh.
JJ Okocha.
No,
he's not. He's Nigerian, isn't he?
Didier Zakora.
No.
Wilfred Zaha
is correct.
Oh, I was going to say Solomon Kalou.
Yeah, exactly. Drogba and Kalou
3-2 up.
Popped into my mind before
Yaya Toure, Kolo Toure.
Exactly.
Bizarre.
Isn't that amazing? So, yeah.
3-2. I'm losing.
Okay, let's go to Iceland.
Ida Gudjohnsen.
Well, he's gone with Gudjohnsen. It's incorrect.
Oh, wow. There's only one other.
Is there? I've not got a clue. Give me some more.
Go on, Burrow.
Gylfi Sigurdsson.
Is correct.
Oh, for Creole. Sake, I didn't even think about him.
Come on.
Go on.
Come on,
I'm not even thinking straight.
Not even thinking straight. Come on, then. Let's go to Austria.
Ooh. Did he play for Wigan and wear glasses?
No. He played for Arsenal and he wore gloves.
Ah, yeah. Oh, I've forgotten his name. He's got a really stupid name as well.
I know it too, and I've forgotten it as well.
He's called something. Oh, that's so annoying.
No, I can't remember it. You got to give us some more.
Manninger.
Yeah.
Alex Manninger.
Close.
Won it.
3-3.
Yeah.
He don't get no points for that.
No chance. We're going to have a decider then, gents.
Okay.
Let's go with Bosnia and Herzegovina.
It's got to be Edin Dzeko.
That is correct.
Just about.
There it is.
You lucky.
Retained
your pride there, Johnny.
Never lose quizzes.
Just about. I remember this. We did a quiz back in the day where I almost drew with you, and we almost came to blows.
Ask Richard Lee. I never He's rubbish at
You do beat him. To be fair, that was a moral draw, I think.
No. Listen, if I'm going to lose to anyone, I'm happy losing to you.
Who do you think has the most Player of the Month accolades in the Premier League?
Thierry Henry, on grounds that he both scored and assisted.
No, he had 4 wins.
Who's got the most?
It's 6. There's 3 players.
Gerrard, Lampard.
Gerrard is correct.
Shearer.
No.
Michael Owen
are still playing.
Still playing in the Premier League?
Yeah.
Milner.
No.
Gareth Barry.
No.
He's not in the Premier League anymore.
It's gonna be attacking players, surely. Still play. Not Harry Kane.
Yes, Harry
Kane.
With 6 already.
6 already.
That is amazing.
Incredible, isn't it? He's going to break every single type of record.
As long as he stays
Aguero
fit.
Is correct. Yes.
Oh yes, Aguero definitely.
That's interesting, actually, that those two playing more recently. Does that imply, I don't know, a dominance of certain players, or maybe
Aguero should? I mean, look who he's playing for and the goals he's scored. Kane should. If you look at over the last, since he's come to prominence, he's been incredibly consistent. 25 to 30 goals a season for the last 3 or 4 years. He's got to be there or thereabouts if you consider.
Just quickly, he's going to break that England goal scoring record, isn't he?
If he stays fit, I can't see it. I can't see any. I think if he stays fit and we stay relevant. And we keep.
What do you mean if we stay relevant? Have you seen our young kids? Have you seen Sancho, Rashford, Sterling? We're class, aren't we?
If he stays fit and we stay relevant and we keep creating chances the way we are, if you let me finish, he will score goals. I mean, he'll score a lot of penalties. I know he missed one the other day. In fact, it was a savable penalty. Hit it well enough, but he don't care. He'll go and score. And what club he'll be at when he breaks the record will be interesting, by the way, because I don't think it'll be Spurs.
Interesting. Very interesting indeed. Real Madrid, let us know. 0208 70 20 558. Where will Harry Kane end up?
Love Sport.
Think the energy price cap will save you money? Think again. You could be saving a lot more on cheaper energy tariffs. Price comparison site A Spokesman Said will show you just how much money you could be saving against your current tariff. Don't throw away your hard-earned money to the energy companies. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could switch to cheaper bills in minutes.
aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Listen to Love Sport Radio on your smartphone today. Simply download the free Love Sport app from the App Store or Google Play. Tap the play button and you'll be able to listen to your favourite station. Anytime, anywhere. Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
Hi, I'm Marilyn from Oxfordshire. My current insurance company quoted £245.08 to reinsure. And a spokesman said, obtain me a price of £173.49 for the same cover. This was a fantastic saving for me. And next time my car insurance comes up for renewal, I will be going through A Spokesman Said. No doubt about that.
with a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Alright, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident, and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work. Even a quick look at the message, or firing off a quick reply, affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
This is Love Sport.
Heart in mouth stuff, Paul Mortimer.
Yes,
Heart
it is.
in mouth stuff.
But we did it.
We did it. We get to the last ball of the day. Rory Burns, the opener, who's been so good for us, you'd have to say, is given out. He reviews it. The ball is pitching outside off, and he's all right. England go in. That is stumps. 9 for no wickets taken. Looking quite good, Morts.
Well, at the moment, so far, I mean, I said to you before, I felt that worried me, that we bowled them all out and had half an hour or whatever it was left, because we're never strong enough then. It always concerns me. This and tomorrow morning will concern me. I said to you before, I'd love our 2, 3 and 4 batsmen to be able to sit and watch the cricket at least till after lunch.
Just watch it. Have a nice day off.
Yeah, just without the pressure of, I'm going to be in a minute. And so they have to literally mentally prepare like Denley and Burns do. That, well, they're going to be out soon. We've got to be able to have that faith that our batsmen can stay in just for a little period. I mean, let's say Jofra Archer now and young Curran, I bet they're hoping that they don't have to bat tomorrow.
No, they
because
get
normally I used to feel sorry for Broad and Anderson. They'd toil, get everyone out, and then think, right, I can put my feet up now for at least a day and a half. Right, and then by tea they're batting. Because that's what we used to do, collapse in one of the innings. So I'm just hoping that we can stick it out and put a really good, let's give the fans something, put a really good score on.
If I was in that England cricket team, particularly at Lords, and I had a day or more off, I think I could, in just that time, get really, really unfit. Because have you seen the menus for lunch?
No.
It is mad.
Really?
We did one on the show a few weeks ago, and it was like, you had 4 options for a starter, and it was properly nice stuff. It was like scallops and prawns and stuff like that. And then
real
your
posh
main
stuff.
Yeah, real posh stuff.
No wonder you're loving it.
You know me. And then for the main, you could have Cajun spice swordfish, which is posh for me.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think.
Did they have ketchup?
Oh, I forgot your thing about ketchup.
You didn't ask, did you? You're no good to me.
Well, no, I haven't eaten there. I've only seen the menu.
Yeah,
this is me salivating. Sirloin steak, which you'd have with ketchup, presumably.
No, because I don't eat meat.
Ah.
So I just have the ketchup.
You eat fish though, don't you?
Pescatarian. I eate fish, yeah.
Pescatarian.
So that's not
You
bad.
a swordfish man? You ever had swordfish?
No, I actually never ever have.
I feel like when it's I don't know what I'm saying. I just can't believe people eat swordfish. Basically, when it's that sort of majestic.
I know. It's such a shame, but when you're hungry.
When you're hungry, when the ketchup's there.
Exactly, when the ketchup's there. Come on,
you
just can't. You can't say no.
Well, in terms of hoping that those openers make it through to the swordfish at lunch, surely someone can sit them down and just say, if it is not pitching on your stumps, almost just as an exercise, almost just as seeing if you can do it. Don't get overexcited. Don't think, I can hit a boundary. Don't think about the runs. Think about how long can I stay in.
I think they started that with Jason Roy, and he ended up having detention. Where in detention they were drawing it on the board, and he was going, okay then, okay, leave every now and again, okay. and then when it didn't work, he was back in detention. Okay, all right. But it just doesn't happen.
Well, I'd be interested to see if they can do it, because these guys, to be at the level they're at as batsmen, must be able to pick a delivery really, really well.
Yeah, of
as
course.
soon as it leaves their hand.
They're elite batsmen.
Yeah, they know where it's pitching, and roughly they know where it's going to end up. So if we assume it's not about poor judgment of where the ball's going, it is actually about poor judgment of how to play it, when to leave it alone. And they should just be able to learn to leave it be.
Well, you would assume that. I mean, you're quite right. I'd be sitting there thinking, well, it's got to be something around that, because Test cricket is about taking your time. It's about being patient. It's about forcing the opponents to bowl a bad ball and then punishing that one. And what it should be about, which is what I can't work out, is rotating the strike. So by that I mean just working the ball around. You know, so you go at 3 runs and over, and everyone's getting a touch, and you're rotating the strike, and more importantly, you're making the fielding team having to move and change and improvise. But we don't do that. It's like, no, we don't work the ball around. We've got to smash every ball as far as possible. When the best teams, I mean, I remember Australia used to go at 4 and a bit runs and over, just because they just kept on rotating the strike, and then they'd hit a bad ball. So 4 runs and over becomes 8. You know, and that's what they used to do, but we don't do that, and I can't understand why.
Very, very frustrating. We are joined on the line by Kit Harris, who is Iceland's only cricket writer and broadcaster. Evening, Kit. That is quite the title. What did you make of England's performance today?
Well, it was outstanding, wasn't it? It served to remind us something that all cricket broadcasters and writers, and even all the fans, knew at the start of the season, that this Test series was going to come down to which team had the least bad batting. And if you take away Smith, there isn't really anything different in the Australian side from the English side.
Yeah, I would agree with that totally. But I think what Steve Smith does is he's like a Lionel Messi, or the top players. They encourage the others to play. So he will encourage, although they haven't played very well, but he'll encourage the others to play. And if you look at our batting, I don't know if we are confident in everyone, because we chop and change, and people are in and people are out, and they trust them so far, and the techniques are poor. So at least they've got one steady batsman. We don't seem to have one at the moment. Possibly Joe Root.
Well, you're right, aren't you? Because you remember that period of great success that England had that kind of started with Vaughan and continued through Strauss and probably culminated in the Ashes win in Australia. Was they had that very settled top 6, but they were prepared to keep picking people when everyone else thought they were a bit mediocre. Flintoff got a terrible write-up for the first year or two, but it paid off sticking with him. And now, a talented player like Jason Roy fails in his first 2 Test matches, and then everyone's against him. He shouldn't be opening the batting. He should be at 4. No, he shouldn't be 4. He should be back at Surrey. It's like being in the 90s again. Everyone gets 2 tests to make an impact. They're either a Roy or, less often, they're an Archer.
Kit, Sam Curran was in the side today. He was very, very impressive. Is the lesson that he should have been in the side for the first 4 tests?
That's so difficult, isn't it? Because in the West Indies, when he was picked overseas and kept Mark Wood out of the side, the swing wasn't there. And with Curran, the pace is rarely there. He's the slowest of the seamers on average, as well as he bowls. But if the swing's not there, there's nothing for him. Whereas today, you've seen him make the ball swing. He's got his tail up. He's begun to fire things down every now and then in the mid-80s. So on his day, in English conditions, he's cracking. If he's a every match pick, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I think, but at some point, like you said with Jason Roy, you have to stick with people. I mean, I look at Jason Roy and I think they should have given him the whole series, to be truthfully honest. But I also think that he was set up to fail, because how can you come from white ball cricket, okay, a huge emotional high of winning the World Cup, the way it happened, without very little rest, straight into red ball cricket, which is something you don't play on a regular basis, in a high-profile series against, I think, probably the premier bowling, quartet or I would say, or trio in the world. I think you're set up to fail.
Well, some can and some can't make that transition. I mean, Archer, David Warner before him are good examples of people who did make the transition from white to red ball. But I think you're right on the whole, and I think you're also right that it's been really amplified by the exhaustion that these guys feel after a massive emotional high. It's not just playing the World Cup. I mean, every Test team played the World Cup, with the exception of one. But actually, it's the emotional come down to having won it. You shouldn't really underestimate that. So yeah, I think you're quite right there.
Kit, just finally, in terms of pure entertainment, where does this series rank in Ashes history?
Well, it's there or thereabouts. I mean, each of the series in England since 2005 has been outstanding. I think really 2005 and 1981 are always going to be the great series, but all of the other series in England since 2005 have been very good. But what we have got in this series that we haven't had for some time, certainly not for 14 years in England, is a superlative Test finish. And I think when history reflects in a decade to come on this series, that Test finish will go down, I think, as England's greatest ever.
Well, it's certainly been enjoyable, even though we haven't won the series. This one has been a cracker to watch. Kit, great to chat to you. Thank you for your time. Kit Harris there, who's a cricket journalist, giving his take on a Test that actually, for once, England might win. Wouldn't that?
I've heard that England does not have a kidney bank, but it does have a Liverpool.
Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice. If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do, the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Can you save money on your car insurance? Chris did with a little help from a spokesmansaid.com. Getting real people, real savings.
I'm Chris from Leicestershire, a truck driver. I went on a spokesman's ad, which was very straightforward and easy to use for an old git like myself, and saved over £300 on my car insurance.
Find quotes from over 100 leading insurance providers at a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it. You just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F. Face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A. Arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S. Speech. Is their speech slurred? T. Time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
Love Sport.
Johnny Burrow and Paul Mortimer in the studio with you until 7, and we are very fortunate to be joined by the wonderful Charlie Hawkins, who is carrying you forward from 7. Charlie, what's coming up on the fan shows?
Firstly, we've got Chelsea, very important match this week. They play Wolves, which is a tricky tie because we know of the success Wolves have had against that top 6. You know, obviously Chelsea, that disappointing result just before the international break. 2-0 up at home, flying to Sheffield United. Well, we know what happened there, 2-2 Sheffield United coming.
You know, I'm going to disagree with you with that.
Yeah?
I went to see that game, and Chelsea were 2 up at half-time, but Sheffield United were never out of the game. It wasn't a comfortable 2-0, and I think my worry for Chelsea is there's a naivety to them that was at Derby with Lampard.
Yeah.
So it's about him, because at 2-1 they score, you've got to manage the game. But it was still, for a neutral, it was a wonderful game.
Mm-hmm.
End-to-end stuff. Could have gone either way. I thought Sheffield United were better in the second half. And Chelsea hung on for a period.
And of course, Sheffield United, they scored very early, didn't they, in the second half? And Chelsea almost didn't reply, did they? They looked very rattled, and Sheffield United obviously did go on and get the equalising goal.
Charlie, do those Chelsea fans feel like there are leaders in that team? Because I think that kind of collapse is about two things. It's, as Mort says, that naivety. You can somehow tell on the pitch that the manager's young in terms of managerial experience, but also there's not a Ballack or a Lampard or a Carvalho.
They've not got a general.
Who at 2-1 goes, now hang on a minute, let's calm down, we can see this out. Are the guys happy with the psychology of the team?
I think they almost feel like this year is... I've heard a lot of them say it's a free pass. We're in a transition this year. I don't believe when you're a club the size and stature of Chelsea, there's anything such as a thing called a free pass. You know, they're in the Champions League. They play Valencia this week. You don't get a free pass when you're playing in Europe's elite competition. This will be a tough year for Lampard, but, you know, he will be given this pass. There is this transfer ban. He's going to be given time. We believe Chelsea not known for giving their managers time. They are giving youth a chance. I think last year, on an average, they gave their young players 467 minutes of football. They're already up to 1,000 minutes, and we're 4 games in.
I think it's brilliant, but you're spot on. I took the words off my lips. You cannot be in transition or a free pass when you're in the Champions League. I'm sorry, you can't. You have to do the best you can. You have to. And Chelsea, I think if they don't finish in the top 4 or 5, I think if they don't do well in the Champions League, I just cannot. That's not going to be acceptable. And I know Frank Lampard, and you want him to do well, but part of taking the big job is you have to perform to the standard that Chelsea require.
Interesting to see whether he survives. From 8, you've got the Leeds fan show. What's the feeling there?
The feeling is we have to go up this year. It's this year. It's all or nothing. I mean, I almost feel, again, Leeds, they say this every year, don't they? This is all or nothing. We have to go up. But they were so close last year, obviously losing to Frank Lampard's derby. This year, they are third. They're just out of those automatic places. But again, just before the international break, a disappointing defeat to Swansea. So maybe the international break come at the right time for them, you know, recharge those batteries. They've got some tricky fixtures. They play... they play Barnsley this weekend, and we know what Barnsley are like at home. In the calendar year, Barnsley do not lose at home. After that, they play Charlton. And Charlton,
we're beating them.
Well, there you go. As Mort said, Charlton are beating them.
Can I ask, Charlie? I looked at them last year, and they ran out of steam. And often it's because of the way they train and the demands. I can see that happening again this year. I think they have to have a buffer, because I think their legs will go. It's a dog of a division, as you know. It's such a horrible division to get out of. So many games.
46 games, a tough long season. And as you know, with the Championship, everyone beats everyone. But the manager has said this time, we will pay no attention to the cups. We're only going for the league. Because I think what you said, they did peak a little bit too early. They ran out of steam. They've got a secret weapon this time. Arsenal loanee Eddie Nketiah. And that's the difference.
He knows where the goal is, that boy. Coming up, I was there when he scored his first professional goals. Nobody knew who he was.
Very quickly though, with Eddie and Nketiah, he hasn't played a full season, and it's not just playing. He's going to a place where the training is completely different from what he's experienced before. There is a difference between playing Saturday midweek, and being on the bench or being in the squad, because the psychology, the mental aspects are completely different. So this is going to be a culture shock to him as well.
It is, and also, you know, the physicality of the Championship. You know, they will try to rough him up, not in a dirty sense, but he does need to still add that sort of man size and man strength.
No, I would. If he's going to score their goals, I'm kicking him. It's as simple as that. Because if I can find a way to stop him, they don't score.
Mortz isn't even talking about as a player anyway. He's getting on
the
train
Sainsbury's, I'm kicking him.
From 9, it is Millwall. How are they shaping up?
Well, it is a packed show. 5 guests on the Millwall show. Very excited. Lots to talk about, obviously. Again, a mixed season, an indifferent start for them, because they've had some brilliant results, and then they've had these strange performances. We know when they got played off the park to Fulham, the most possession ever. It was like 89.6% possession for 90 minutes. But you never know what you're going to get with Millwall. They do play Blackburn on the weekend. Blackburn have lost their last 2, and with Millwall, I think it's a season of not consolidation, because they are in the Championship, but I think they want to establish themselves more, and also they're just quite disappointed at the start Charlton have made, so we're going to have some fun with that.
I might call in.
Then from 10 till 10:30 it is Brighton.
10 till 10:30, Brighton, the first ever Brighton fan show.
Very exciting.
Very exciting. We're going to be a new regular every Friday, Brighton 10 to 10:30. No better way to kick it off than with Gordon Smith, former Brighton legend, played in that FA Cup final. We're going to be hearing...
You're not going to remind him of that, are you? Oh, my God, he missed a good chance.
Do you know
what? Is ringing in again? He's ringing into every show.
Because when we spoke to Gordon about getting him on tonight, it's the first thing he said. He went, it still haunts me to this day. You know, and it was just for me to hear it, and we're going to talk more in depth tonight. But what is it? 30 years on, and to hear an ex-pro say it still haunts him, and how things could have been different. Yeah,
if he scores, they win the cup. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, incredible. We're going to be talking about it.
Oh, he's lucky you're not on this show. 10:30 till 11. Another new one, El Clasico.
Real Madrid and Barcelona. I'm really excited about this one. It's almost like the gloves are off. We're giving 15 minutes to Real Madrid, 15 minutes to Barcelona. We will be kicking off with Barcelona, who have not started the brightest in La Liga. They're blaming it on Messi, and the Neymar saga continues. And they're almost in, I would say, if it is possible, one of the hardest Champions League groups. Borussia Dortmund, Inter Milan and Slavia Prague. Yeah. Not the easiest of draws.
They could find themselves in trouble in that.
Well, this is it. Even if you are Barcelona, you don't want to go to Germany and Italy and play these sides. So they're in for a tough if the way they've started La Liga as well.
Well, it sounds like a cracking few shows, Charlie. I'll be tuning in on my way home. Good stuff. Looking forward to it. Great to see you, as ever. Charlie Hawkins there. You need to stay with Love Sport Radio from 7. Those fan shows, top-notch stuff. And it's been top-notch stuff here, I have to say, Paul Mortimer. A pleasure.
It's been great fun. I haven't seen you in a while. We haven't done this for a while. I really look forward. It's been really good.
Reunited. And tell me, how's the chicken going to be for your dinner?
Well, I'm going to put loads of ketchup on it.
Keep you ticking over. Well, we've covered a lot. Of course, our top story was the sad news of Dave Brailsford, his diagnosis with prostate cancer. All the very best to him from everyone here at Love Sport Radio for his prognosis results tomorrow following that surgery. If you've been listening, remember, particularly if you're a middle-aged man or older, get to your GP. Just book an appointment. It's nothing scary. Have a chat. It can be very, very important to find these things early. And we've had some cracking news in the cricket. We're reluctant. We've been hurt before, Paul.
Take your time with that.
We don't trust this team, but it's looking okay. We didn't lose any wickets tonight.
I should take your word for it.
You're going to take my word for it?
That everything's all right.
We're going to do it. Everything is okay. You've got Charlton firing. We've got a fantastic weekend of Premier League football because club football is back. We'll be back with you on Monday, but stay right here on Love Sport Radio with Charlie Hawkins for those fan shows. It's Chelsea, Leeds, Millwall, Brighton and El Clasico.
This is Love Sport.
Hello, my name's Paula. I'm from the Shropshire area and I'm a business development manager. I use a spokesman said for my car insurance where I've saved over £500 and also on travel insurance as well. So in total, me and my family have saved about £600. I would definitely use it again and I would definitely recommend it.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting